Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict, and boy, do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy
They
there.
got the wrong guy. The dog was biting him.
He roughened him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
Bigger than you. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us.
9 out of 10 judges prefer watching the Recovery Addict live stream in their courtroom.
The fireworks are not done.
Now we're doing commentary on the case. That is the Anglican, or he's nervous Latino.
Is that correct?
I didn't ask you to interrupt me.
Literally not true.
Oh, for crumb's sake.
Scratch all that. Oh, that was terrible. I apologize.
All right, there we go. Welcome, good morning. I was pushing all the wrong buttons. Or good afternoon, even. You see, I can't even get that right. It's been a day. I think it was Kathy Russin who said, one of her coworkers said, this has been the Mondayest Tuesday ever. So it really has. All right, welcome. Let's see, where are we? Let's go to the top right here. Marianne, R65, you've done it twice in a row. This makes you a repeat offender. You've won a twofer, two for Tuesday. You are once again our internet owner. Congratulations. Everything IP related worldwide is now your responsibility. Congratulations. Let's see. Phil, most of my firearms are worth less than $2,000. Mental note, I'll put you lower on the list of like places to rob. No, just I missed the rest. What's the other conversation? I just walked in and you're announcing firearm prices. I would say that all of the firearms I've ever owned have been worth less than $2,000, possibly combined. Gotta love those Saturday night specials. All right. Good morning. Afternoon. Tammy Lee, thank you very much. We have been following Nate the lawyer. He was awesome. Him jumping in on Runkle's stream on Saturday. Whoa, where did everything go? Why did YouTube just crash? Not all of it, but just our chat. I'll bring it back. There, I can hear myself. I'll bring it back. That's the delay for those that you want to know how much the delay is. That was it. All right, we'll do it one more time. Marianne, that's clearly something you can fix. Internet issues. Blue Stars would like to sit down. Hold, please. This is the last one I'm taking care of for you, Marianne. The rest of the problems are all going to be yours. So, give me just a second. I might have to bounce it completely. Chatbot started successfully, but it hasn't gone green. There we go. It's sort of working. Not sure if the words will work, but close enough.
Someone with more experience.
Yeah. All right. There we go. Welcome back. Let's see. I've got a weird whistle in my ears. Oh, and I only have 1 minute and 32 seconds left of space on my hard drive for recording. So I should probably address that first. Hold, please, while I take care of a pressing matter. Hard drive is named Big Dill, appropriately. Big Dill. Whatever happened on August 29th, it's gone. I'm deleting it. Move to trash. Not even going to look. Delete. Now how much do I have? A lot more. October 15th, gone. Move to trash. Okay, now I've got like days. I've got days of space. Okay. I figured out my phone has been doing something. I did this. And for those of you who have an iPhone and I got the new update, all the liquid display, everything, whatever else. It's cool. But somehow in the update, it decided to also decide which phone calls are important. And if the phone call is deemed unimportant, it just doesn't ring on my end. So yesterday at noon, when the car shop who's had our car in for repair for over a week called to say, please call us regarding your car, They're like, huh? No, you don't need this one. We've gone ahead and silenced that for you, and we won't tell you about it because we know you're busy, and you probably wouldn't just hang up on them anyway. I figured out how to turn that off. But in opening up the settings, it was already turned off. So if anybody is having problems, I'm actually hoping to get a few more spam calls because of this, because a lot of them have been filtered out, and I think that's depriving you guys of the joy and pleasure of seeing me take phone calls from spammers. So got 3 this morning, but the auto body shop didn't come through. So Sandy Graham, member for 13 months. Wow, hit my year mark. Love you guys. Best place to be. Sandy Graham, thank you very much. Hit your year mark plus a month. Time's flying. Apple knows he didn't want to take the call. It was weird. Lots of cloud issues today. Dwayne needs his calls. Yeah. The call the other day was for all of them. Hey, this morning during court, I answered one off air, and it was like the other days. It might have been the same dude, the guy with the hearing aid. Where I said I had hearing aids. It might have been the same guy, because he also had some words to say about me, but I did not record that one. I'll do better next time. My stream keeps freezing every other word you say. Back up, back out, refresh, come back. I'm pushing 7.2 megabytes per second, which is a good 1080p stream. So that's HD. That works. Plot twist, the spam caller now has his own YouTube channel where he plays his calls with the hearing aid guy. Dueling calls. All right. Yes, more experience. Wogger, I wish I could make it stop, but it doesn't. It continues. This is part of my life. So, all right. Where are we? We're about to go back to court. We're waiting for the judge to come back in. We have about 5 minutes. It's going to take a minute to line up audio and everything. Oh, they're starting now. Hold, please. Racked up 9K in travel credits. You can go anywhere in the world, Phil, on any cruise line. Hot mic.
Okay, all right. Property management.
I think we're done with Ben Jackson. I think we're on to a new witness. The audio guy's making up for being late on day 1 with being early on day 2. Doesn't work that way, but I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. It's just regular courtroom chatter, and it's all the gallery. So I think we're on to witness number 9. That's my thought. I think we got the last of it. For those that are curious, in the Brian Walsh case, which had a surprising guilty plea on 2 of the counts, but still going on forward on the murder charge, they are picking a jury right now, and it's not really spicy. There's lots of quiet, lots of reading, lots of repetition. It's what's going to happen there, and it'll be like 7 days possibly of that. So that happens. Just got 450 more. You're racking them up. Where are you going to keep them all? You're going to need to make a special little dumpster to keep your travel credits in. And by the way, Phil, I saw your latest cute little box. That looked awesome. Congratulations. Thank you. I say thank you for them, and congratulations on making something really awesome. Let's see. When I babysit my grandson, I let him have the 75-inch TV, and I watch on my phone. You got it backwards. Okay. Walsh case is similar to my husband's cousin's case. Never found her body. Wow. Those are tough ones. Don't like the idea that if somebody murders well enough, they don't get caught. Or they get away with it. But that's the way the system works. I've been helping a neighbor who's wheelchair bound. Kindly update the case, please, says Cass. Cass, we're just on day 2 of this trial. This is the Georgia versus Matthew Lanz trial. He is accused of murdering the parents of a 2-year-old boy. And these parents lived like one house next door to his parents' home that he sort of lived in while he was away from college. It's weird. Or he could come back to and live in. And it's not clear if his parents lived in there at the time. I don't think they did. It's the crazy thing is here. There's no like obvious motive other than possibly mistaken identity or retribution and mistaken identity, because the victims there was nothing. They're just great people, and they're just in their house setting up Christmas decorations and have a 2-year-old, and they have a clean house, and everybody loves them. And along comes allegedly the defendant and breaks a window and enters and shoots them both to death and leaves the 2-year-old. And the family was, as they can't get a hold of him, he notifies police. It's about 12 hours before they're able to go in and find the 2-year-old covered in blood, but not injured physically beyond that. The dog was in there, but there's just questions. There's shell casings there. They were able to put things together with the video camera to see what happened and sort of piece it together. They haven't told us. Oh, here's the judge. They haven't told us yet, but they caught him because he broke into another house a couple days later. And that break-in ended with him being shot and arrested after he stabbed a police officer. So the defendant has got a little, he's got some baggage. And there's some family issues we're not getting into. We're just trying to focus on the case here. The brother is also been in the news. Well, or was in the news. He's passed as a result. Judge, you ready?
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I am Judge Sonia Brown, the presiding judge for this criminal jury trial for the state of Georgia versus Matthew Scott Lanz, case number 229000922. Again, present in the open courtroom of the court, the clerk, the court reporter, Mr. Lanz. He's represented by Attorney Jimmy Berry, and the state is represented by Assistant District Attorneys Green and Horowitz. Anything we need to put on the record before we proceed?
Just one thing, Judge. After this witness, they're going to put up a witness. He took swabs. I think it was you that took the swab. When the state finishes, there's about a 5-minute video that I have not seen.
Okay.
If we could take 5 minutes and review that to see if we can send to it.
Sure. Of course. Of course. Anything else?
No, Judge.
All right. You may proceed, Attorney Horowitz.
And Judge, right before the break, I had admitted State's Exhibit 466, which is an interview with Scott and Teresa Lanz. So I would ask the public at this time.
You may.
And then I'm ready.
Do you all need the lights turned
off?
Okay.
So this is before Detective, you're still under oath. Before I press play on this, for the record, can you just indicate what the date is of this interview and time?
It's November the 19th, 2021 at 9:12 p.m.
Defendant's parents.
For the record, who is in this video before it starts playing?
That's Matthew Lanz's parents, Scott and Teresa Lanz.
Who's on the right, who's on the left?
Teresa's on the left and Scott is on the right.
Now, for the record, I'm going to start State Exhibit 466 at 9:12 and 50 seconds p.m.
And the second standard. You're fine. Scott, yes, and that. The second standard. You're Teresa. Yeah. All right. You Good evening. I'm ready to go in here, especially this hour of the night. Obviously, Detective Jackson is really busy. We're investigating that murder that happened in your neighborhood, behind your house. Has everybody told you that they know what was going on with your son, Matthew? Does anybody know what was going on with Matthew? Why don't we talk? Sorry. Well, I'm going to leave you. Okay.
Let me see if I can get closed caption.
Matthew was found in two people's houses down in Sandy Springs. When the officer showed up, he was in someone's house. He then pulled out a knife and he stabbed Sandy Springs officer multiple times. Sandy Springs officer, Sandy Springs officer is expected to survive. Matthew was shot at least twice, but he was fine. He was treated at a hospital. He's expected to make a full recovery. So I just want to let you know that. Okay. You want me to give you a minute? We can step out. We can go.
What is he doing?
That's you now. Like I said, that was something happened in Sandy Springs. Detective Jackson and I found out about it really early this morning. We've been down in Sandy Springs for the whole part of the day, trying to figure out everything that kind of transpired down there. Obviously, Sandy Springs, and you guys are doing a separate investigation as far as that goes. But obviously, in light of where this double homicide happened, and Matthew being in someone's home with a weapon, and hurting a police officer, it obviously raises our suspicion and makes us want
You're sure it's Matthew?
yeah, there it is.
Do you have ID on him, his name?
Yeah, exactly. We heard the body cams and all that stuff. He was in someone's house, one house down there in Sandy Springs. And we showed up to kind of talk to him, and with that knife, he stabbed off the back of that direction. He can have the guns. Well, just saw him around the house. We went down there to meet with the Sandy Springs detectives to try to figure out what was going on and what happened. Sorry.
I cannot. I can't believe it. I'm sick.
Not that if you need a minute to talk on yourself, or you just need 5 minutes for it.
Well, they came to our house, treated me like a criminal. They brought me outside and put my hands behind my back. They ripped me.
The police that came to your house?
Yes. Do you have a weapon?
Well, that's it. I don't know how it makes you feel that way. You don't want to just think you're around. But we also don't know who's inside there or what. Especially when you just have an officer who just got stabbed. They're just very extra careful about how they proceed with that.
He's okay.
He is okay. He went to the hospital. He treated the guy. The officer's fine. The officer's good.
He's got shot. Matthew got shot.
He did.
And
Yeah, the police officer on scene who was there did fire stuff and he was shot. Like I said, we weren't there. I can't tell you every little bit of detail because we were already filed this out of the same strength. We did go down there to try to figure out what happened this morning. That information we have in front of that. I'm sure they still have a lot of work to do as far as the investigation goes. But we were down there at this house where this happened this morning.
do you
You
have
had a suspicion about Matthew prior to that. So, the house where that fell off, We understand there was a connection there with your other son.
Yes.
Okay. We heard about that incident. Okay. We heard that there was a brother. We didn't really know who Matthew was at that time when we were investigating this double homicide. But we knew there was another son of yours. And then this morning we got a call that when St. Street found out who Matthew was and where he lived in relation to where the double homicide happened, they called us and said, hey, you might want to know about this because how close it was now to someone else's home and how you armed with a weapon and staff leading us there. So obviously when we're investigating homicide, that is something we have to follow up on. We have to look into that aspect, okay? So that's how Detective Jackson and I ended up having
How could he be mentally disturbed? He's been seeing a psychiatrist since the thing that happened with Austin because we were concerned that it was so close.
He's been seeing a psychiatrist
At first.
since the thing with Austin.
We've never met. I've never met Matthew. I've never had any communication with Matthew prior. I think it's nothing about Matthew was what his life is been. I guess it's still that. I never even knew anything about whatever happened at that house with your other son previously until yesterday. Literally, this is the first time this has come to light to me. So that's why, obviously, we're here. Another thing that concerned us was that about the firearm that we had. And I guess from what we're being told, we may have taken from him for whatever more total for verdicts. And we appreciate that.
We told him that after what happened to Austin, he could not have any guns.
We back up once. When they were younger, we bought them. I never remember if I bought them or who bought them, but we have one left. And we used to go to the range and shoot. It was a long gun, I don't remember what it is. And then they purchased 2 handguns, separate, like 4 together or something. I never really got a true story out of that. And after all this business, we found them.
We didn't even know they were in the house.
We never had any idea. And that's, let me appreciate this a little bit. When I said, like, we never met before. I never knew anything about Matthew, I never knew anything about your son. We're not here to judge Matthew. Judge something you guys. We just trying to get answers. We always want to get yourself background. I don't know what the folks are now locked up at a safe. We bought a safe after we took them away. Put them in a safe, did them in the closet. Matthew always asked about his guns. Don't worry about your guns, you're not getting them back. Maybe one day I'll go with you, but not right now, because I'm just not a gun person at all. I saw him every week. He'd come home when I go to Athens, and we'd play golf and dinner. I knew it was going to be tough with his brother's loss. We knew he had something going on in his head that we couldn't figure out. We couldn't figure out Austin either. We thought we were doing the right thing. I don't know if we will. But Matthew wasn't right. We were going to pull him out of his way, bring him back home, let him go to a full, be around him more, and he didn't want to do that. He said, I'm fine. So he's got some issues. After all we had malarkey, he went out and bought a gun. He told us October.
Yeah, well, we didn't know this until yesterday.
Well, we went to see him. There was a gun in the car. We told him, that was this. Where did you get this? I bought it at Athens gun store.
Gun range.
Whatever, I don't remember. And I said, well, you can't have this. He said, Dad, it's personal property, it's mine, he's defiant, he doesn't like law, he doesn't like rules.
He needs to protect himself. For some reason,
there's a fear that somebody's out to get him.
With this, he says, that's what he says every time we say, why do you think you need something to protect yourself. Because everybody should have something to protect themselves.
We have got some private hands, and we never had anything. I took back to our house, and I just showed that old folks who were there with us doing war, and they know exactly where it is. And, you know, there's a kind of, my guess is, I don't know.
But, I mean, the reason we went to Athens today, I went first, because after we found out about the neighbors, I started trying to call him, you know, to tell him before he saw it or heard it, and he wasn't answering his phone. And I continued to text him and call him.
Is it raining? I'm going straight to voicemail, or?
I think that it was showing blue yesterday. Today it's been showing green. I think I texted him twice and called him maybe a couple of times. And it was just green, so I assumed it was either dead or off. But yesterday it was blue. And so I probably got there about 2:30 or so, and I unlocked the door, and the chain was on. And I was, you know, yelling through the door, so I could see his bedroom door was closed. And I kept saying, Matthew, you know, come to the door. And I waited and waited. And so I kept trying to push the chain just to break it. And about the time that I finally got it to unscrew out of the wall, he walked out of his bedroom. And the gun was right by the bed. And I said, what is this? He said, well, I thought you were, somebody was breaking into the apartment. And I said, well, why would you think that? I was screaming, Maggie's mom. And, you know, this is 2:30 in the afternoon, and he's in a dance sleep in his bed when he's supposed to be in class.
You all have a gun. I haven't been drunk. If you're a gun, that's a gun. I'm everything I have, I just follow exactly where I put it. Like I said, I'm really anything. I don't have any secrets here.
But that is why we were there yesterday, because I was concerned that I couldn't get in touch with him, and I wanted to tell him about what happened.
Do you have any suspicions?
I had there was no barking Wednesday night or whenever that occurred. Was Wednesday night? Yes. Wednesday night, my dogs bark at everything. I mean, they bark when I go outside, I can't find anything. We didn't hear a sound. And so I have no idea what happened. If he was there, he was not in the house.
Not in our house.
Not in our house.
No. Not just mine. That's information. When you heard about what happened to your neighbor's house, is there any suspicion that Matthew may have been involved?
I would never. I mean, we've never even met any people. Never even met them. And Matthew knew that the other people moved out long ago. It never occurred to me that he had anything to do with this.
The person we asked when we talked to Matthew, he said that you asked him if he killed neighbors.
Well,
here's, let me back up. I speak to him regularly, trying to keep the spirits up, let him know we're going to do something, blah, blah, blah. He called me Tuesday night. I spoke to him Tuesday night. How you doing, buddy? Everything okay? School? What are you doing? He said, I was at the gas station filling up my car. Filling up his car. And he was going to come home with his computer. And I said, great, you pick me up at the airport tomorrow, which was Wednesday night. Wednesday. Wednesday, I talked to him. Pick me up at the airport at 6 o'clock. Yes. He said the meeting was going on. She knew nothing about him being home. He he ever came in the house, if he came home, he did unlock the doors. We don't even know if he ever came home. He told us that he went home, but never went inside the house. That's exactly what he told us, and that's what they said. The next day, when this occurred, I said, "You're not this nervous. Now, you told me he was coming home. Maybe he didn't come home, but we ought to call and see what's up with him." You saw him. You could have seen the department. Yeah. You would have heard somebody picking up.
Because I tried to get him to come back home with me, and he said, "No, I don't need to come home."
This place,
yeah.
He had it for a while.
Yeah, yes. He was in August.
August. Like I said, you've been over there multiple times, right?
Yes.
How does he react? Is it neat and orderly? Yeah. Safe chaos?
No, it's always very neat and clean and orderly.
When you saw him, I guess it was Thursday or some Thursday, what was his appearance? Was he drunk? Was he?
He was not drunk.
How was he saying weird things? He always says weird things. He wouldn't say weird things. Lately, he was just really good fellow. He was just really.
When he got up at 2:30 in the afternoon, you could tell he had been sleeping very hard because, his eyes were swollen and he was kind of disoriented at first. And I said, "What are you doing in bed? Why aren't you in class?" And he said, "I was just really tired." And I said, "Why are you so tired?" I can't remember what he said. But I probably said, "Daddy said you were coming home." I said, "Well, you weren't at home." I said, "What is going on?" And at first he told me that he came in the house. And I said, "There's no way he came in the house because the dogs would bark and flip out." I said, "There's no way you were inside our house." And I said, "And we have a thing that we latch and lock it." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "How would you have gotten in?" And then later he said, "No, I didn't come in." And so I didn't really believe that he actually was anywhere in the vicinity. And that's when I said, of course, I saw the gun and we had that conversation. And I said, "Did you have anything to do with what happened to the neighbors?" And that's when I told him, what happened to the neighbors. He didn't respond immediately. Like, "Oh my God, are you kidding?" I think he was just still not alert. I mean, you could tell.
He wasn't alert because he was still not wake up, or was he was all kind of out loud,
I don't know. I mean, I honestly can't answer that. I don't know if it was that, he was just not quite. It was later on, after I'd been there for quite a while before Scott came, he was more alert and talking, more clearly.
Did he ever give you actual yes or no response about the gas and that?
He said, "I did not murder anybody."
So other than him kind of sleeping at night, is that unusual from the sleep till 30 years now? We should watch him on the weekend. We got your classes going. How do I say figure out the weekend? We sleep until 2:30.
Yeah, not that late, no.
So, it's a little unusual for him to sleep at night. He looked tired when he woke up. Everything in the apartment seemed normal.
Yeah.
Who actually did it? You wouldn't get it to her. That's why Teresa called me and said, I said, "Get Matthew in the car, bring him to our house." And he refused to go home. That's when she called me and said, "I'm here, blah, 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 blah. He's off his rocker. I'm going to have everybody pick him from the airport. You go." So I went and felt the same thing and talked about it and asked point blank, were you involved? And it was not a yes or no. It was all answers that really made no sense.
The parents have changed their stories a little bit.
Somebody has. They're making a sense to these heroin. So we said, let's go. You're going. Mom's going with Aunt Ryan, because she picked me up, and I'll drive you and I. He said, Dad, I want to stay here. I said, why? Why would you want to come home? You were going to come home last night. We did. He said, I just want to stay. I got classes, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay. But I'm taking it up. And he went and got it. And said, Dad, possession is possession. I'm the owner. You can't do this to me. Blah, blah, blah. And I go, give her a flip. I'm taking the gun. You can have bullets, but I'm taking the freaking gun. And it bothered me.
Well, no, he said you should take the bullet too. He told you should take the bullet too.
I just wanted the gun. It has to be his bullets. I can't use them. I'll get it. I'm not going to what I thought was where you're going to take him to himself. Or somebody else. No, I know you're not. I don't know. That's terrible. I think it's terrible to say, but his mindset was completely.
But you would think if his psychiatrist that he's been seeing every 2 weeks, because we wanted him to continue to meet with him, because of what happened to Austin. Because he said, we asked him, would you like to continue to go? And he said, yeah, it'd be good for me. Maybe because he's 22 years old, that he can't tell us anything. I don't know.
I know you said you had a that. Do you have any idea what kind of happens?
I have no idea.
But you know color. Black. Did it look like kind of like what you said, block? This is, that's one of the blocks. Because the other two guys we have blocks. This one was, I looked at it. It was shaped like this. It was shaped like that same size.
But the holster's not that big. It's just about that wide.
It's okay. I understand that. 88, 99, caliber. I was so he had the bullets at his house. Yes. Did you ever see the bullets? Yes. Okay. Can you describe those to me? They were about eight. Yeah. If I use the word casing, showcase. What color was the showcase? Gold. The showcase was gold. She had any other camera with us, anything like that. Not because the gun and the ammo was in the drawer. It was on the floor next to the bed. It was there. After 3 hours, he put it in his little drawer box. Do you have any other magazines there?
No. He had two. One was on it and one in it. Well, it was not in it, it was just kind of hanging out.
Does it have the same ammo in there, too? That's about, yeah, I think it was the same. But I said, well, how many are in these? And he said, 8, maybe.
I don't know.
I said, how many are missing from the other?
He said he shot 5 or 6 rounds at his own range.
He fired 5 or 6 shots at the range. If I showed you a little bit, would you be able to recognize it? I know so. Did you ever see anything on those kind like this?
The little one that big.
Is that just so wrong like that? I don't think it was so rough.
No, little.
Now, I know you said you've seen a psychiatrist. Did you actually think diagnosed with things?
I mean, I told the psychiatrist that, I thought that he was either bipolar or schizophrenic, of the episodes that we've seen over the last few years.
So it's been a few years now?
About 2.5.
I'm trying to think of those. I know maybe not there yet.
Yeah.
You all had the memories of it, yeah. So a couple years.
Yeah.
fraud, never got in trouble, never drank, never was, you know, it was the good crowd kids. When he went to Georgia, I wanted him to get a fraternity to help him because he was kind of a geek, you know, he was in computer lab at school, and I just thought it would help him socially at Georgia. And you know, I was sitting in his dorm apartment all day on the computer. So I said, I think it will help you socially, you'll really enjoy it. My daughter was in with the story, loved it. And so I think that was the beginning of the end. Of course, he got in there and started drinking and smoking, and Lord only knows what else those guys do. And, you know, I think he started smoking pot. He didn't ever smoke pot before. And the kind of crap that those kids get now, I don't know what's in it, but it's not the kind of pot from way back when. And so we started seeing, you know, his grades started climbing after the first semester, and behavior, yes.
Did he struggle at school this time? Yes.
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 Yes, he's been struggling ever since.
Yeah, they were doing something at some point, you know, probably done this at the recovery house, and it got him way off track. I think he went up and again, you know, has something every night.
Yes, it has not been on given him a hug now.
And he's a counselor. When he went around, people freaked out.
It was paranoid.
You know, he was he arrested. He got probation. And he had 2 more months.
Well, he got, had to go through the code of conduct through school because it was on, their fraternity house was on school campus, not off campus. So when they contacted the fraternity council to tell them what had happened, they in turn contacted the school. So then the school board called me and said, you know, I'm calling to let you know there was an incident at his fraternity house. He is on his way home, and so we got an attorney to get him back in school because they wanted to keep him out like 2 semesters, like a whole year. And we just felt like, you know, the kid's never been in trouble. He got so high, he didn't know what he was doing. He needs a second chance because he's just a great student, great kid.
But it was hard. It was Clark County Police.
Yeah, so I drove him to the police station and turned himself in. Because of the attorney record.
And you think that incident was because he got too high or something?
Yeah.
John said, or you think that was the beginning of maybe?
I think he was smoking a tremendous amount of pot at that time. And I think that was the beginning of all these episodes. And we didn't know this, but another episode occurred before that when he was living in the dorm. They said he was running through the dorm and banged his head against the wall when he was real high one time. And the people that come to check on what they but they didn't ever notify us because they didn't seem to think.
Never got there. He kind of stayed the same. He quit smoking because he was on. Yeah, did a weekly work every Sunday went to the police station. So I think he was straight for a period of time. And then once he completed that, he kind of slid back to the old days. We did our own academic probation for this stuff. Yeah. So struggling in school, but still maintaining grades. He wouldn't tell us.
Well,
He's become really defiant, right? Really. I think he'll Go ahead.
He came home, you know, when that happened in the fall of his sophomore year. That's when that happened, like in October at the fraternity. And so he stayed home through, did he start back the spring?
Yeah, for COVID.
Oh yeah, that's when COVID hit, so he had to stay home. He was allowed to go back to school and take classes, but he had to do it online because when COVID hit. So he was home that whole year, and then that summer, and then this is his junior year, and so he went back. Well, we got an apartment in April because he couldn't find any community service in Cobb County for his program. Yeah.
So he was full of scholarship for 2 quarters. Came out of Kennesaw High School with a 4 point something, and went to Georgia and had a 3.6 and a 3.5, and joined the fraternity all down. And my guess is today he had 1 good quarter. Because we said you got to straighten up. We're paying a lot of money, and I think this quarter will be his worst to the major.
It was engineering, and he switched it to cognitive science.
Which again is cognitive science.
It's a new major, I think, at Georgia, but
I'll be honest with you, we will be testing it. We will be testing it. I don't have the results of that right this second, but I realize we'll be having
do you know how many times the people have? Both of them, each small one.
Do you guys know where in the house bodies were?
I talked to the grandparents down the street briefly, and they told me that the authorities told them they were sitting on the sofa. They were found sitting on the sofa.
You know what room they were in?
I'm assuming that must be their den.
Yeah, war around here.
You ever tell them what room they were?
All I want to know is was he involved? Yes. It seemed like and I know they can do strange things, seeing strange things. There's something specific that's kind of very repetitive behavior with him, whether he be presence or does he paranoid about a specific thing? There's something specific.
It takes on having to have a weapon to protect himself, especially since what happened to Austin.
Is this like a everyday thing, or is it kind of comes and goes, or he has good weeks and bad weeks, or as far as whatever's going on with him?
Well, when he came home and he asked to see where the guns were, I was the only one who knew where the key was. And so Daddy, Scott said, I don't know where the key is, but I will get Mom to go get it, and I will show you where the guns are, that they're safe, and they're put away, and they'll be here for whenever. And so I went and got the key, and, unlocked it. He came in, and he and Scott sat there, and he showed him, everything was in the safe, and
now you can't take his lock back up, and I'll be here when we think it's time to do something else. So he's pretty big on protecting himself. Did he ever express anything of why he needed protection? Did he express that he thought was? I think there were folks out to get him, and I think it was on the devilish, demonic side of his mind that he things, believing things that weren't true, that led him to believe, somebody's going to come get me. I don't know.
Yes, one day when I was in Athens, he drove me past this temple that he says were devil worshippers. Because he said he was sitting outside one night, and he heard a woman or somebody scream to the top of their lungs. And we said, where do you think that was coming from? He said, I think it was coming from the demonic temple.
It was amazing. That's what it was. I didn't get your way to it. I said, are you kidding me? He told me that would come when I was in D.C. And the next time I saw him, said, tell me where all this happened. And it was 3 to a mile from his house. And I said, something doesn't make sense. If you scream as loud as you can at that place, there's no way you're back at your place. So was that in his mind? He believes things that I don't think would ever have occurred. That for me, 3 months ago. Yeah. Did he ever say anything about that house that happened? Even before the house that happened? Was he ever connected to the house talking about people who live there?
Now, when that was all going on with Austin, I would ask him, I would say, do you see any of this that Austin thinks he sees and that's going on? Have you ever seen them flashing lights at Austin? He said, I've seen the lights. And he said, I think that one or both of them are messing with Austin. He said, I've never seen them in person. He said, but, I think that they are messing with Austin.
So, did Austin have a fixation on that house?
Well,
he was putting things in the mailboxes. He believed that they were going in the bathroom and posing for him and turning the lights on and off and shining the laser in our house and just things that aren't normal, right? And God forbid we did everything was good for Austin, and he had similar issues with the dark side. It's all I can say. But they're living in the real world. Now, I know you said Matthew said, yes, I saw them and the lights over there, and they were messing with Austin and stuff. Did he say anything about that house recently?
No, haven't mentioned the house. Not at all.
Because I heard this a few months. They sold their house a month after.
They sold their house.
After lockdown.
Yeah. And I think what that was in
September.
Maybe somewhere around that
So I made a point to tell him that those people, the old people, are gone, and new people are moved in that house. Because Matt handles about the light.
He did?
About the previous owners messing with Austin. Because, like I said, I was very familiar with what happened with Austin and that house prior to This was new to me until today. And I can tell Matthew was very, we asked him, what happened to your brother in the house? And why did he go over there that one time that their house was that come? Because I don't want to talk about that house. What happened to my brother? He seemed like he's very, I don't want to talk about it. But then he would say, yes, Mason, that's the lights. He took about the lights. It's with your lights out all the time. But then, these little, that's what I was thinking, the concern for us was that the new residents in the window have flashing Christmas tree. That go on and off and just flashlight. And Austin told us he's out backyard, Matt told us he's out backyard. He said, catching the light. So
he told so he was there.
He told us he came to your house. Sat in the car for like 15 minutes. Took like an hour and a half essentially. Walked around the backyard, smoked a cigarette, kind of hanging out there for a little bit. And they separated.
And did he say he came in the house?
He said he never went here.
Why did he tell us that he came in our house?
He said he didn't go. He said he got a bad feeling. He took a bad feeling in the air. And then that spooked him. But the fixation of the license, but we were trying to kind of understand what he meant by that.
He was saying that he saw flashing lights in the backyard.
He said he saw like flickering of his burger.
Well, I was trying to figure out if he was really there, because I said, were there any lights on in the house behind us if you were here? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, were they on upstairs or downstairs? Because they left, I think, the lights on. It wasn't everything exactly like we found it. And from what I've seen, it's the downstairs lights that are on, not the upstairs. And he said he used that term, those demonic lights were on. And I said, what? And he said, those demonic lights.
So he said that happened to the car?
Yes.
After this happened?
Yes.
So he told you that the car was demonic.
Yes. And I said,
why would he? What's the point in telling you about the Christmas lights? No, he didn't tell us about the Christmas lights. I'm telling you that when we're talking about flashing lights and stuff, the house just happened to have a flashing crash. So that was something we were thinking like,
He just flashing lights.
we were trying to think
Go out of the house and the flashing Christmas tree.
yeah. And he called it demonic lights to me. And that's why I didn't believe he was really there. Honest to God, I just believe he was just not here. I said, after you came home, and you said you came in the house, the dogs would have heard you, the dogs would bark, the light would have on the lights that automatically comes on when you walk in.
Right.
So I'm a very light sleeper. I said, there's no way you were inside our house. And he said, yeah, you're right. I didn't come in the house.
Yeah, I believe you.
So, one minute he told me one thing and the next thing he told me another. So I just didn't know what to believe. And that's when I probably said, did you have anything to do with those people?
Did you know he was up in Metro Atlanta?
Oh, I have no idea.
What? Did you know he was up in Metro Atlanta today?
No.
Did you think he was still in Atlanta? I didn't know if he could have come back.
No, I'm not.
Or just, yeah, did you think he was still in Atlanta?
Yes, because we said when we left, if you stay here, you got to go to class. Don't feel reliant. Go in person. And he said, I am. So I texted him this morning because I thought his classes were 11 and said, you up? And he didn't respond. And then I tried calling him, and he just went straight to voicemail. And I thought, oh gosh, he's still asleep. He did not get up. And so I called him again at some point, and it went straight to voicemail again. And so I told Scott, I said, I guess we need to go back tomorrow and see what the world's going on.
I didn't know sure if he called you today.
No. We told him that if he didn't come home with us last night, just to stay and come home Tuesday when classes were over. But he never said any other negative things about that house. Once that was all over and done, And he said something to me. I can't remember exactly what we're talking about, but he said, no, I don't hold a grudge. Austin didn't hold a grudge, and I don't hold a grudge. When I said, did you have anything to do with us treating? And he said something like, no, I don't hold a grudge.
And when you explained to them, the previous residents don't live here anymore, new family that seemed like he understood that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It wasn't just a point in time conversation. It was a conversation about a lot of things. We were on that all four. I don't remember when or where. And, he was always needed them. I need to know everything you do. I need to know everything. Right? Matthew was always one that needed to be information. So he knew what we were doing. He knew where if we were going on vacation. If we were going to do this and that.
But it was in the newspaper. He knew all the newspaper articles that the guy had moved out the week before Austin broke in there. So he knew that no one was living there. And then the guy put in the media that the girl had moved out way back in October. And we didn't know that. We thought they were both there that whole time.
So it never seemed like you forgot that you had that conversation and forgot that they...
No.
There was never been a reason to have another conversation.
He never took the tail line in the yard, He knew that it was for sale. And he knew that the guy had moved out.
He doesn't have a road except
No.
The house in the apartment.
No more.
The all campers.
All campers.
Old apartment that was pretty nice.
Different than them. So pretty sell and return to the couple.
His freshman friend, it was a great kid. Korean guy that went to Kennesaw Mountain, right?
Yeah.
And as a freshman, they roomed together. Great kid. He still keeps in touch with him. He had a fraternity incident, and he got decommissioned or de-pledged. So I don't think he has much conversation with him. I don't think he has a lot of friends.
I asked him last night.
Quiet guy, he's a loner. He's just not reserved.
But he wasn't
As far as as an adult, he understands all more.
But he never, I don't think he ever got past the fraternity incident. Socially, I think that, the fraternity told all the fraternity brothers not having to do with him. And I think, that was a huge.
435 is North Church Street. Apartment 4. Apartment 4. Yeah, Church Street. Yeah, it's Adams. 435 North Church Street. Apartment 4. Yeah, he is very orderly. He does his laundry regularly. It's clean. There's not trash everywhere. He used to cook himself some food. He's now gone off on a little different tangent. Don't feel like he's eating. Him and Austin Christopher.
Yeah. I mean, they were home together for almost 2 years, like that. He had to come home his sophomore year. And, Austin was there all that time. And then Matthew was home until about April.
Did he take it pretty hard afterwards?
We all did.
And I can't be so. And I would be good to sympathize with you. We were trying to understand what Matthew's mindset was. He did not. He was too hard on it for a month, a few weeks or a month. That's why every weekend I would go do something with him. Austin got August. It was August 9.
He had
choice. He would come with us. He wanted to. And I think that yeah, pretty far.
Did he seem like he got worse with maybe delusions or ability after?
I mean, like he had a physical, like, crying breakdown in the car, driving home for 10 hours. Like, that's the first time he had just let it all out, and he was just screaming and mad as hell and crying and just talking crazy. And we just were like, oh my God. And that's when we, called psychiatrists and said, can we come in and all meet and talk?
Other than what happened today, and wanted to protect himself, which is actually what if people want to ever had violent outbursts. Anybody? No. I know we have knife around it. He never assaulted anybody.
Not that we are.
Tried to stab anybody. Pointing a gun at somebody for no reason.
Never, never.
I think it's been just in the last 6 to 8 weeks that he's tilted. He tilted. Nothing.
I think he knows that he's failing and that he's eating away at the pressure. And he told me last night that he had dropped Spanish. And I said, is that eating away at you that you haven't told me and just now telling me? And he said, yes. And I said, are you going to your other classes? Because we weren't convinced that he's going to his classes. And he says, yes, I have. And he says, I'm still over, I'm taking full force, even if I'm driving.
Today, he went to 10-1 class. I worked out to do a 1-1 class. He went to Sandy's friends.
That's insane to me.
We hugged him last night, right?
Yes.
And said, we love you. Get your butt up, go to class, and we'll see you on Friday, because he had class to
Tuesday, we told him.
I'm sorry, Tuesday. Right. You guys are going to go there now.
I was there from 2:30 until we'll start. We didn't fly in until 6:15, and then I had to drive there.
I didn't get there until 9, but we left.
9:30, 10. Is that right? Yeah, we were home by 11:30.
Yeah.
That was us.
Yeah, for some reason, he drove up in his car, left it abandoned on the side of the road.
On the highway?
Well, he was up. He was off. Yeah, north side. Left his car in the middle of the road.
In the middle of the road?
In a lane, and a hero truck out there in the abandoned, so they just kind of push it over to the side, because it's just in the middle of the road. No, it was that. Yeah, right on that cop pulled kind of like. Yeah, there was a camera up there, some traffic cameras up there. You see him get out, it's kind of pacing around, and just walk away. And then the next thing I find out, I don't remember how far away, down the road, goes into one house, walks out, and goes into another house, which there were people home at the time. They told him, hey, we couldn't get out of our house. Started saying some things that they thought were unusual. He would leave, walked up the stairs, walked upstairs to their house. They called the police, and that's when that whole incident was finished. He lost his mind. And I don't want to know every specific detail. That's kind of what they
just stop your car in the middle of the road. We don't have to die or
we don't have a problem or man. We had this. Now the hero truck thing just kind of dragged it out away, but
locked. So he left the middle road locked.
I don't know where he's at. I don't know. An officer, an car, locked the car, and either in somewhere else, either in the car. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know if there's a mechanical problem or a gas, whatever I say is that they have it kind of just.
In the first house, did he just walk in?
I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. I'm not 100% sure because I'm not doing that investigation. When I was told there were 2 houses he went into. One of them, I know at least one of them was occupied. And I spent money walking up the stairs, walking around. They were like, what are you doing? I have to get out of here. He starts to pick the cover. They can all take springs, their officer show up. He comes down the stairs. His adversity is very kind of cordial and not doing anything unusual. And next thing they pull it out, stab the officer several times. And then one of the other officers in there, pulled the firearm and then he shot twice.
Where was he shot?
Took one in the neck, rolled those back, and he took one in the neck, shoulder, chest here, neck, transport to the hospital. But he did receive medical care, and was released in there, they cleared up to be released. You're all custody? He's in his range. They charged him, several criminal suspects. So they charged him with every assault on an officer. Yeah, I mean, he's got plenty of charges.
So what has he said about the RNS lane?
So he told us about the issue with Austin and the whole thing about the lights. We heard about the lights. He admitted to being there that night. And as far as your property in the backyard.
No, you don't remember mentioning anything about the living room, the body work.
I don't recall mentioning that to him.
He said that to us. We thought that was unusual. Because he never had used that. We never used it as media. As far as us, the police department. And I don't know if people may have heard or don't figure out here, but he made a comment that, yeah, we were killed in the living room. Kind of looked at each other. We were totally into that.
I'm pretty sure I told him that someone broke in the window and that they did tell him that they thought that someone broke in while people were gone. Because that's what the grandparents told the grandfather, that the authorities told them that they think somebody broke in while they were gone and were in there and surprised him because he said they were just sitting on the sofa. So I might have told him that. Yeah, I do remember telling him the windows were broken in and that the grandfather thought someone was in there waiting.
And he said, don't touch the lights. And that was actually smoking a cigarette. You could see the lights, catching the light on the corner of his eye. Which obviously worked as a fixation about the lights. We asked him a question there, like, hey, when you get your gun, the showcase, you know, match the serial showcase in the house, he goes, probably not.
It's probably.
And I was like, man, you don't seem very confident in that. He said, we said something about, like, why do you think this would happen to some of these people? I think they comment like, they could have been demonic. So it seemed like he was there enough to not go into specific details, but there's also some things that were very concerning. So obviously, there was some camera footage of someone working around in their backyard. Some clothing that was similar to what he was wearing today. We asked him about a specific thing that all of them were having. He was wearing another thing. And we were like,
so he wasn't wearing the same clothes.
Well, he was wearing that thing. We go, which way was it? It was the North Face that he was wearing. And that's what he was wearing today. So he kind of said, and then he came took a long pause, stare off.
Yeah, I remember him when I told him that they had a child, and he said, "Were they okay?" And I said, "Yes, they were okay." I said, "But, they found him hiding. He was clearly, upset." Because I remember him saying he's okay.
Love you, yes, the child's
Oh, dear God. He's just, if it's with him, he lost his mind. He lost his mind to go into someone's house and then shrink, and you know that for sure.
That's for sure.
Yes.
He said officer, how she got.
He's crazy.
We have a charge and with anything that's very serious. Okay. But we'll prepare you that it is possible. Keep going, let it go. He may possibly go on charge of 2 counts of homicide and several other charges, okay? Like I said, we're still investigating this thing. I just want to prepare you that it is a possibility for public gathering so far, okay?
He'll never come out. Yeah, we'll put him in jail and he'll never come back.
He's crazy, God. He needs to help.
You don't come out. We don't come out. We have started with this thing as well, okay? I just want to prepare you that with what we've done so far, and it's...
But what's the process to continue? What's Charles' process?
Call Mr. Berry. You call an attorney.
That's, I mean,
Well,
you have this, up to you. He's already had criminal charges and seen these things.
Right.
Sure.
Your father paid your phone.
My number is 404. 702. 404.
I'm not going to give you his phone number. They're getting phone numbers right now. The parents are in denial. Dad says if you put him in jail, he's not coming out. Mom says we need an attorney. Mom says it was bad first with Austin, and this is just, I can't believe this. Dad's giving more phone numbers for people that police need numbers for.
Get in and set up, get some water, come down, just get some time together.
Police said just have to ready yourself. He's probably going to be charged with 2 counts of homicide. Mom is physically ill. Garbage. Wow.
For the record, I'm stopping this video at 10:18 22nd. Detective, you see that both yourself and Detective Stannard exit the interview room. Is that the completion of the interview?
Yes, sir. I think we went back in one more time just to check on it.
But nothing of conversation as to this case, really?
Correct.
So I want to ask you some questions about some of your tape.
Before you go into that, why don't we take a quick break? It's been about an hour and about 15 minutes. Give everyone an opportunity to stretch and get some water, and we'll come back at 2:50, about 10 minutes.
Thank you.
All right. While they go to break, let me say this about that. What was quite apparent during this is that the parents may not have been giving the police the full story as they're talking to the police. When they first walked into the interrogation, the interview room, the parents basically wide-eyed, deer in the headlights. What's going on? What do you mean? What happened? We don't know anything. And as the police slowly played cards and got responses, the parents had to basically change their story a little bit. They basically said, we had no idea he was involved. There was no indication. The cops were asking, did he ever have any suspicions, anything? And they're like, no. You know, our boy? No, nothing. And the police said, then why did Matthew tell us that you asked him point blank, were you involved in those murders? And the parents had to walk it back and say, well, what probably happened was, we were talking about and they were definitely in CYA mode, and as the conversation goes on, it seems like the dad knew that he has a lot of mental issues. Shouldn't have had guns, and he did have guns, but they took him away and put him in a safe. I don't know how he got the guns. I'm still a little confused about that. It was really noisy. The mom had some pretty strong feelings, wondering if he was involved in this whole thing, and had a pretty in-depth conversation with as the interview goes on. She's revealing more and more about this conversation, which initially she's like, I might have just mentioned it in passing. And then we find out that there's actually extensive discussion that's gone on, that Matthew, that we knew there was a problem with Austin and the flashing lights on the neighbor's house, and now that he had passed since that incident at the Pentagon, the whole family takes it hard. And Matthew, mom says, Matthew said, I don't hold grudges against the house and the people. No, nothing. And the dad says that he had this in-depth conversation explaining that the old people in the house are gone now. The people that had a problem with Austin are gone. These are new people. So we're getting sort of mixed messages from the parents. Obviously, it's pretty traumatic. Matthew had been going to a psychiatrist at least every 2 weeks since the Matthew incident, or since the Austin incident. The police, they talked about the guns, about finding the gun, about how Matthew was home and at one point, and his mom came trying to get in the house and couldn't get the door open. She was basically beating the door down to knock the chain out of the wall. And right at the time she finally got in, Matthew comes down and he's been asleep, and there was a gun next to his bed. He talked about having to defend himself and needed to have a firearm for that. And just a lot. It's natural. She was protecting her young, but she's also, I would say that from my observation, I'm surprised that she didn't at least get threatened with some charges, because sometimes that line can be blurred into obstructing very easily. But the fact that they knew that he had guns and had the mental illness issues, that's a hard one. That's tough. Charges for being a mom. She started opening up, not lying. No, I'm talking about when she lied to the police and said, no, we never told him that. And then she's like, oh, I did, but it was only just in passing. And then it became, oh, well, we had this conversation about this and this, and it turns out that it was the main conversation they had, the whole point of the conversation. So the story had to develop as the mom was covering her tracks to backtrack to fit the facts the police already knew. So they were. I would say it might open them, maybe not criminal case, but definitely civilly. There's definitely possibility for civil litigation in this, as there always is. All right. That was tough. That was the best audio we could possibly get out of that. It was terrible. I mean, I'm not sure who was running the cement mixing machine in the background the whole time, but it was bad audio. All right, since it's come up, I don't know the details of this, but the issue with Austin also had some mental issues. He dealt with some demons, and he ended up self-deleting after attacking and taking the gun from a guard at the Pentagon. I don't know if the guard was injured or killed in that exchange or not. I don't have the details on that one. But obviously some serious issues there. And that seemed to be an instigator. Matthew, the parents say, was a great kid in school. Like great grades, played lacrosse, never drank, never smoked, did anything, and the guard did die. Okay, I'm sorry. That's terrible. But once he went to college, he started smoking and drinking, got in a fraternity, and the fraternity sort of rejected him. And that was hard on him. His parents said, I don't want you just sitting around playing the computer. They wanted him to go to Georgia, UGA, I think it was, for like the social side of things, because he just wasn't getting out. Didn't have many friends, was sort of a loner everywhere he went. And yeah. There was a history with Austin and the previous homeowners. This is a great question. Chad was discussing previous homeowners and whether they did or should have disclosed trouble with the brothers before selling. Thoughts? I think they should do whatever's legal in their state. I don't think you'd have to disclose every pet that's died there, or every in some states they require, if you've had a repair, a plumbing repair that required more than X number of dollars of repair, you have to disclose that within this many years. And so I would just say, if it's required, yes. I don't think morally, for me, that's not a big issue, and that's why it's not an issue. If you didn't like your neighbors, I've got it. When I sell this house, I've got a neighbor who plays the car stereo way early, way too loud. I'm not going to put that on a listing, right? I'm sure the new owners are not going to be too happy about that, but it's not going to be like, hey, great house, haunted, Civil War relics in yard, neighbor plays stereo really loud. It's not something I'm going to list. Although, if there's something legally I have to put on there, I will. I'm going to talk to your neighbor, Debbie. Thank you. I'll send you their number. Yeah. Another neighbor tries to feed us poisoned meat. And there's the neighbor that broke into my house. So yeah, I guess I've got a whole bunch of disclosures I've got to put on my listing. So that was some difficult audio. There was not any closed captioning available. I apologize for that, but it's the best we could do. My first house was in the vicinity of Levi Stadium. We waited after Super Bowl 50th to put on sale. I don't know the timing and the location of the Super Bowl. Is that after the Super Bowl or before? Because I figure before you could sell it and people would rent it out and then sell it again. Disclosure, we have a brand new pole. Yes, we do. And it's beautiful. You're going to love it. Here's what we're hearing a ton of. We're hearing a ton through this testimony from the parents, which I'm sort of curious why they're not here, right? Why were they not subpoenaed? They still live in state, presumably at the same address. Where he's lived pretty much most of his life, the dad. Why did we have their interview instead of, I mean, are they unwilling witnesses? Are they hostile? Are they refusing to participate? I don't know what the situation is there, but it's interesting that that comes in the way that it did. Let's see. I agree with you. If mental health issue, the previous owners may have thought them moving would help, but fixation was on the house unknown to them. Yeah, and the lights. There was something that Matthew had told his mom. He said, we were driving and we drove past a Masonic lodge. And Matthew had said that this is they're devil worshippers in there. And he could hear the women that there's like sacrificing, screaming or something from his apartment or something strange like that. And the dad's explaining, no, there's no way that anyone screaming in there would be able to be heard that far away. Clearly the dad said there's something going on that Matthew is hearing and seeing things that aren't seen and heard by other people. What does this do to the case, though? What does this do? We've got him currently declared competent to stand trial, but there's the issue of, was he competent at the time of the offense? Because that's what you're judged on, right? Did you know at the time that what you were doing was wrong? And I don't know how this one's going to turn out. They probably have an attorney so advised not to do another interview, right? But they could still be called as witnesses. Didn't his lawyer say the FBI did it or something? His lawyer said that the client, Matthew, believes that there are people out to get him, trying to frame him, or and that the CIA and FBI, those three-digit or three-letter agencies are all in on it. He's being set up by the FBI and the CIA. Defense may agree to play the interview to avoid parents taking the stand. He was seeing a mental health worker every 2 weeks. Did they not notice anything? Birdie B, I believe he was over the age of 18. He must have been over the age of 21 if he legally bought the handgun. I think that's the age where you can buy a handgun. It's 21. And at that age, once you're an adult, the provider, the healthcare provider, can't give your records out to somebody else without your permission.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Thank you.
Judge is back. Here we go. Hold on, the sync is just a tiny bit off and it's bugging me. That was perfect. Nailed it. Waiting for the defendant to come in. I do have concerns about the competency as well. It's not just his behavior in court, but the family, the behavior, the reported incident where he was running up and down the halls at the dorm or whatever and slamming his head into the wall where he was super high or something. There was an incident at the frat house. I'm not sure if that's the same one.
Sorry, Judge, we look at the video.
Oh, okay. No problem. Are you all ready to proceed, or do you need more time? We're ready. All right, we are back on the record in the state of Georgia versus Matthew Scott Lanz, 22-00922. All parties are present. You may proceed, ADA.
Detective, so after watching that video, I want to kind of understand kind of the procedural of events. So on what day was the murder?
The bodies were found on the 18th, with the murder likely occurred the 17th into the 18th.
Now, after speaking with Teresa and Scott, when did they go to Athens?
They went to Athens the 18th, the day that the bodies were found.
Now, during that interview, around what time did Teresa make it to Athens?
She said she left about noon and arrived at Athens around 2:30 in the afternoon.
Now, what about Scott?
I don't recall the exact time, but Teresa was already there, and she said she called her at the airport, had the daughter pick him up at the airport and come straight there.
Now, what were some of the big takeaways of the interview that you had with Teresa and Scott?
The first thing that struck me was the fact that Teresa did think to drive over 2 hours to Athens the same day, the 18th. And then the fact that she had asked her son if it had anything to do with the neighbors being murdered.
And was anything about the gun significant to you?
Yeah, first off, the fact that they decided they needed to take the gun from their son, as Mr. Scott said, he thought he might be suicidal or homicidal or somebody else. And then Matthew told them that he fired 5 or 6 rounds at the range, which was consistent with the number of rounds from the homicide scene.
Now, who ultimately took the gun from the defendant?
Scott said that he took it because Matthew wouldn't give it to his mother. So he said he took the firearm and left the bullets there in the apartment.
And what did he do with the gun?
He took it and put it in his bedroom closet, which is when officers arrived at the house, he told them where to find it. They found the gun.
Now, I want to move on to some buccal swabs. At some point, did you obtain a search warrant for the defendant's DNA?
Yes, the deputy standard, and I obtained search warrants, Fulton County search warrants for the defendant's DNA because he was at the Fulton County Jail on Rice Street.
Why were you interested in obtaining that DNA?
To compare with DNA collected on the scene, we were having the ATF process the shell casings for DNA, and then also when we recovered the firearm, we compared any DNA from the firearm.
Now, were you able to actually execute that search warrant?
We did. The search warrant was obtained November the 30th, and we executed December the 1st, I believe around 11:40 hours.
And where did you execute it?
At the Fulton County Jail on Rice Street.
Now, for the judge, how is that buccal swab examination conducted?
We use sterile cotton swabs, and we swab the insides of the cheeks. I usually use 2 swabs and swab the inside of the cheek to collect the DNA.
Now, I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibits 482 and 483. Do you recognize these exhibits?
Yes, they're the buccal swab kits from Matthew Scott Lanz.
And are these the physical swabs that you took from Matthew Scott Lanz at the jail that day?
Yes, they're sealed in the evidence package.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibits 482 and 483 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
States 482 and 483 are admitted.
There's no waiting period to purchase a
while,
gun in Georgia.
Conducting that buccal swab examination, did you also take a photograph of the defendant?
Yes, we took a photograph of the defendant to show who we were collecting the buccal swabs from, and we also audio recorded our interaction.
I'm now going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 659. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir. It's Matthew Lanz.
And is this the photograph you took during that buccal swab examination?
Yes, sir.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibit 659 into evidence.
Any objection? States 659 is admitted.
Now, you also mentioned an audio recording. prior to your testimony, did you happen to listen to the audio recording prior to your testimony?
Yes, sir. I viewed it this morning.
And was that a copy of that interaction with Mr. Lanz at the jail that day?
Yes, sir.
At this time, state moved and it was marked as State's Exhibit 467 in evidence.
Here we go again.
Any objection?
I had the opportunity during the break to listen to that, so we don't have any objection.
Thank you. State 467 is in the
Hold, please. I'm
Yes.
gonna sync it up just a teensy bit more.
And for the record, I am playing 467 starting at 1 minute and 20 seconds.
It's an audio-only recording.
Well, it's the first process that I'm getting. If you have any issues with that, we're going to pick it up your attorney, and then you can do a motion. For your attorney. Okay.
I'm gonna try to clean it up.
You're going to keep it. All right.
It's an audio recording in a jail. This is the buccal swab. Open your mouth wide. Take this moment to remind you to hydrate. Pretty much. Search warrant for his DNA. The defendant's gone to the same position we've observed him in when he hears his parents talking. If it asks if they're with GBI, they say no, we're with COP. We're now taking the second swab for his DNA.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Cooperation, you got the person to do the third one. Yeah, it should be moved up. Yeah, we're done. And those things we just cooperation and keep your own records.
You say we're going to give a copy to your attorney. Copy of the warrant.
Lawyer, yes. Yes, he was going to give them that copy, and then we'll also have additional copies on that you can get from the court to their copy. Okay. That is what it should be.
Okay, I think we're done. Whoever that inmate was that was yelling the whole time, that sure didn't help.
The remainder of that audio, just you leaving it.
What?
I'm stopping the video at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Detective, the remainder of that video, is that just you leaving the jail?
Yes, sir. It's just us leaving.
Now, the swabs that were taken that has been admitted into evidence, were those sent off for forensic testing?
Yes, sir. I believe 2 were sent to the GBI and 2 were sent to the ATF.
Now, I want to show you what's already been admitted, State Exhibit 659. Now, is this Matthew Lanz who you performed that buccal swabs on?
Yes, sir. That's the picture I took.
Now, do you see Matthew Lanz in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
If you'll please point him out and describe an article of clothing.
He's sitting at the defense table in the green shirt.
It was a video too.
Reflect that the detective has identified the defendant.
We just didn't get to see it.
Now, were you also tasked with getting buccal swabs for Jacob Hicks?
Yes, sir.
How did you go about doing that?
We did that the same day. We went to their home and got consent from Jacob's grandfather, Timothy. And again, it's a swab of the inside of the cheek.
Now I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibits 657 and 658. Do you recognize them?
Yes, sir. It's the buccal swabs from Jacob Hicks.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibits 657 and 658 into evidence.
Any objection? State 657 and 658 are admitted.
Now, with those swabs as well, were they also sent off for forensic testing?
Yes, sir.
Where?
Also 2 to the GBI and 2 to the ATF.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney.
Probably
Barry,
no questions.
you
Let's see. Is this about taking the swabs? What are you going to question him on? Oh, wait, the parents.
Thank you, Jackson. Did you, were you involved in the search of the home or go to the home on the 18th?
On Defile?
I'm sorry.
On Defile or the one in Athens?
The next day, the 18th.
The scene?
The scene?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay, and what was your job at the scene?
I assisted with processing the scene.
I'm sorry.
I assisted with processing the scene.
Processing. Okay, and what did you do to process?
Look for evidence, look for shell casings, searched the upstairs bedroom. I remember when the Ayden investigator got there, I assisted with moving Amber's body.
Did you find anything other than the shell casings that were of interest?
I believe we found a piece of a projectile, if I recall.
Okay. Did you collect that or somebody else?
I did not. The crime scene technician and the medical examiner's office collected those items.
You indicated that you had possession of a firearm at some point?
The firearm used in the crime?
Correct.
No, sir, not that I recall.
And you indicated that you got a Fulton County search warrant. Was that you or some other person?
I was with Detective Standard, but Detective Standard was the affidavit. And in relation to the firearm, I did find the magazines at the apartment in Athens.
Okay. So that was going to be my next question. Did you go to Athens to be involved in that search there?
Yes, sir.
And what did you find in that search about?
In the computer desk drawer, I found 2 loaded magazines.
Okay, 2 loaded magazines, and were those 9mm magazines?
Yes, sir.
Did you find any loose bullets?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Was there anything else that you found of significance there in the search in Athens?
No, sir, not that I recall.
And were the magazines that you collected, were they sent to the ATF or the crime lab, whoever's going to do the testing on those?
I believe Detective Standard sent them off, but I'm not sure. I do remember counting the rounds in them. One was fully loaded and one, I believe, had 12 rounds in it.
Okay. How many rounds does the clip normally hold?
17.
Okay. And did you do anything else in relation to this case other than what you testified to?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Is there any follow-up or redirect for Detective Jackson?
No, Judge.
May I be excused?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Detective Jackson, please.
It's 3:10. Should have got a new witness in here. At least one more.
State and call your next witness.
At this time, the state calls Todd Bill.
They are sanitizing the witness box after each witness. Part of the problem with this audio system is we're hearing all the mics up all the time. So we're hearing the boundary mic that's on the desk in front of the witness, and we're also hearing the sound from the sound system that's picked up by the little podium gooseneck mic also in front of the witness as its sound gets picked up by the boundary mic. That's why everyone sounds like they're underwater.
Raise your right hand, please.
Because it's just the
You
timing.
do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the court on the issue now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
You have a seat for me. And once seated, if you please state and spell your true and correct legal name for the record.
It's Todd Bill. Last name is B as in boy, I-L-L-E.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon.
I like that tie.
If you'll please introduce yourself to the judge and explain how you were employed.
Bill, I'm the senior scientist for the DNA section at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives Laboratory in Beltsville, Maryland.
Now, you say that you're a DNA scientist.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You said that you're a DNA scientist for the ATF. What does that mean?
So as a senior scientist, I act as in an advisory capacity to the Deputy Assistant Director of the Office of Science and Technology for the ATF Laboratory. I also perform research. I coordinate research internally at the ATF Lab. I also coordinate research with other government agencies and external agencies. And then, as necessary now, I do some casework analysis as well.
Now, it probably goes without saying, but is the ATF an accredited lab?
Yes, sir.
Now, for the judge, can you describe your job responsibilities?
So as a senior scientist, like I said, I advise the Deputy Assistant Director of the OST. I also perform research on improving methods, research new methods that we could potentially implement, help with the validation of those methods, and then perform casework analysis.
Now, how long have you been with the ATF?
It's coming up on 20 years, since 2006.
And have you been specifically kind of in the DNA field with the ATF during that entire time?
Yes.
Prior to being with the ATF since 2006, did you have any other experience dealing with DNA?
Yes, I started my forensic career with the Indiana State Police Laboratory in 1991. I was actually hired in the trace unit, as before they had a DNA unit. But later on that year, they decided that they wanted to start a DNA unit. And since my background was in biochemistry, I transferred over to the DNA unit, helped start that unit. I was there for 10 years, doing DNA analysis, serology analysis. Eventually, when the DNA technical leader position became a thing, I became the DNA technical leader of the laboratory. DNA technical leader is responsible for all DNA technical, or all aspects of the DNA analysis at the laboratory. So developing the methods, validating those methods, implementing them, performing research. You oversee all the training of the analysts. You're also responsible to make sure you're following all the quality assurance guidelines and that we comply with all the accreditation and national quality assurance standards. I was a DNA technical leader there, eventually became supervisor, and then in 2001, I was hired by the Bodie Technology Group, which is a private DNA laboratory in Northern Virginia, as the assistant laboratory director. And there I oversaw casework analysis and other special projects. For instance, I led the team to develop the DNA extraction methods and process flow for the DNA identification of some of the skeletal remains from World Trade Center.
I'm sorry.
Can defense just stipulate here?
And then became the vice president of special projects there, involved doing different special projects with mass graves, mass humanitarian events. For instance, I went to Thailand after the tsunami in 2004, 2005 to help with the identification there. Then in 2006, the ATF laboratory decided they wanted to have a DNA unit. They've had a laboratory, ATF's had a laboratory since late 1800s, but a lot of the DNA analysis up to that point wasn't really relevant to what they did. DNA analysis was typically body fluids such as blood, semen, saliva, but touch DNA analysis was becoming more prevalent at that time, and so that lent itself more to the type of evidence that we see at the ATF: firearms, explosive devices, and Molotov cocktails, things like that. So they hired me, as well as two other people. They hired me as the DNA technical leader to lead the team to try to get DNA analysis at the ATF laboratory. There I was a DNA technical leader until about 2 years ago, and then I got promoted to the senior scientist position.
Now, with that experience, did you have education that led you towards becoming a DNA analyst for the ATF?
Yes. My Bachelor of Science degree is in biochemistry from Purdue University, and then I also have a Master's of Science degree from Indiana University, Purdue University at Indianapolis.
And do you also continue your education through, I guess, CLEs or PowerPoints or anything to the sort?
Yes, so I went through my initial training in 1991, 1992 at the Indiana State Police Lab for general evidence handling. I went through general training at the Indiana State Police Lab for general evidence handling and then DNA analysis, serology. Eventually, when I came to ATF, I wrote the training manual for there, oversaw training for most analysts. But then, as you said, we do continuing education through our entire career. In addition to keeping up with the literature, I've attended probably over 80 DNA workshops, training seminars, things like that over the course of almost 35 years now.
He trails
how
off.
much of your time is actually devoted to DNA typing research?
100%.
Now,
sorry, 100%.
So what are you doing right now?
Now, for the judge, what is DNA?
So DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid.
The judge knows this.
It's a substance in almost all the cells of your body. It's all the cells except for red blood cells. It contains the genetic information or the information that codes for most of your physical characteristics. Most of the DNA across all individuals is the same, which is why we all have 2 eyes, a nose, 2 ears, etc. But there are small differences in that DNA that we look at as forensic scientists. You can think of DNA as a set of encyclopedias on how to build a body. You get one set of encyclopedias from your mom, one set of encyclopedias from your dad at conception, and then your DNA is the same throughout your body. So if we're looking at blood, semen, saliva, all that genetic information is the same across all those fluids. It's even in the cells and the DNA that's left behind in a fingerprint in the body oils and sweat.
Now, what exactly is DNA typing or DNA analysis?
So it's a forensic...
I'm going to object at this point because he hasn't been tendered as an expert. So if he's going to go into questions about that, I think he needs to be tendered, and then we have an opportunity to ask you questions.
Well, I'm laying the foundation to get him to an expert.
What was the question?
What exactly is DNA typing or DNA analysis?
Sustain.
I'll sustain the objection since you're asking specifically to go into explaining what the process is.
Okay. Have you been trained in DNA typing, DNA analysis?
Yes.
And over the 35 years of being a senior DNA analyst, is that your job?
Yes.
Is that also 100% of your job?
Can you tell the board as to what that process is?
What DNA analysis is?
Yeah.
Yes.
And is that something that you've been doing for the last 35 years?
Yes.
So at this time, I would move to tender him as an expert in DNA analysis.
Okay, defense. Do you have some questions?
Did you want to what
We'll hear him on that at this point, Judge.
All right, they're going to fight this guy.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You indicated that at this point you are more in the research than you are actually doing the DNA testing. Would that be fair to say?
Well, this year's been kind of a big year, so I've been doing actually a lot of casework this year, but yeah, my job responsibilities span both research, casework, and advising the Deputy Assistant Director.
You said it was 100% research.
What were you doing in 2021? What was your job in 2021?
I was the DNA technical leader.
Okay. And did you actually do the testing on this case?
So we do kind of a team approach. There's an analyst that did some of the extractions on this, and then I took it after the extraction on.
Okay, so you didn't actually do the testing, you looked at it afterwards?
I did some of the testing, yes. So he did, this individual did the extraction, then I did the, and we'll probably get into this later, but I did the quantitation, concentration, amplification, genetic analyzer analysis, and then the interpretation and comparison, along with the statistical calculations.
I didn't hear the last few.
Sorry, as well as the statistical calculations. Statistical stats.
And who was the analyst that did the other portions of that investigation?
Mr. Clayton's, Adam Clayton's.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Adam Clayton's. He's another analyst in our laboratory.
What is your, you have a doctorate degree?
No, sir.
And what is your actual title?
Senior
An
scientist.
actual title other than,
Senior scientist of the DNA section.
how many times have you been declared an expert by the courts?
This is, I believe, my 90th time testifying both at the local, state, and federal level.
90th. That's a lot. Okay, I think he qualifies, sir.
And have you been qualified here in Cobb County on any cases in the past?
I don't believe so, no, sir.
Okay. I don't think I have any further questions, Judge.
All right. Any other
I don't have any objection to him being qualified.
Okay.
No
so
objections.
he is tendered and qualified as a DNA analyst expert.
Thank you, Judge. So, can you go through the process of DNA analysis?
So the goal of DNA analysis is to collect DNA or biological material from evidence from a crime scene, develop DNA profiles from that evidence, and then compare those profiles to the DNA profiles from relevant individuals, determine who could or couldn't be possible included, or who could or couldn't be possibly included as contributors to those DNA profiles, and then draw conclusions from there.
Now, can you explain the process for conducting DNA typing?
So the first step, and probably the most important step, is the DNA collection, collecting it at the scene, and then collecting the biological material from the evidence itself. This is usually some type of a swabbing collection method. Then we extract the DNA. This is a series of steps that separates the DNA from the cellular and environmental debris. Once we've extracted and purified the DNA, then we determine how much DNA we actually recover from the evidence. We may have to concentrate the DNA down, but eventually we amplify the DNA. We use a process called polymerase chain reaction, or PCR. This is basically just a molecular Xerox machine that makes millions and millions of copies of specific regions of the DNA. If you go back to the analogy of thinking of DNA as a set of encyclopedias, it's like you're going back in and making specific copies of paragraphs within these sets of encyclopedias and just making millions and millions of copies of those just for visualization purposes. Once we've amplified it, we take those samples and run them through a genetic analyzer. Sorry.
This water there.
Thank you. Run it through.
Drink, sir. And talk clearly.
Run those samples through the genetic analyzer, which separates and detects the amplified product. This gives you basically a graphical representation, which is a series of peaks. We then do the interpretation, determine if the profiles are suitable for comparison purposes. If they are, then we perform the DNA analysis on the known DNA samples from relevant individuals, draw conclusions, and make determinations of whether or not they could be possibly included or excluded as contributors to the DNA, and perform a statistical calculation to lend weight to those conclusions.
Now, once you kind of get that statistical, let me backtrack. How exactly are they read? Is it in that graph-like kind of representation when you get the results?
Yes, sir.
What types of results can you get once you get to that point?
So when we do our comparisons, we perform a statistical calculation using software tools and Assistant. And the end product of that is a likelihood ratio. A likelihood ratio is really just a statistical calculation that compares the probability of an event under one or under two different hypotheses. And so for DNA specifically, we calculate a likelihood ratio based on the probability of seeing that DNA profile, given that the individual is a contributor, divided by the probability of seeing that DNA profile, given that the person is not a contributor. And so, depending on the magnitude of that likelihood ratio, that determines our conclusion. If you start kind of in the middle of a likelihood ratio of 1, that just means that neither side is favored. The evidence doesn't provide favorability for inclusion or exclusion. As you go to values less than 1, if it's just under 1, close to 1 but less than 1, there's limited support for exclusion, meaning there's some favorability for exclusion, but it's within a range where we have a higher risk of false exclusion. And then as you get further away from 1 all the way down to 0, we would just conclude that the person's excluded as being a possible contributor. Going the other way, if the value is just greater than 1, it's favoring the hypothesis that probability of seeing the evidence given that the person is a contributor. But again, if it's just a little bit greater than 1, you're in that range where you have a higher risk of false inclusion. And so we would say there's limited support for inclusion. But then as you get greater than that and further away from 1, you have more and more support for probability of seeing that evidence given that the person is included.
Now, when interpreting these results, do you all have population frequencies?
Yes.
Why are they important?
So we need population frequencies to calculate these statistics. There's different forms of each of these genetic markers we look at, so we need to know how frequently these different forms of these different alleles are found in the population in order to calculate the statistics.
Now, has your lab ever conducted testing that led to the exclusion of a suspect?
Yes.
Is DNA typing used in fields other than criminal cases?
Yes.
And under what circumstances would it be used?
DNA typing is used in medical diagnostic testing, paternity testing, ancestry testing, identification of victims from mass disasters or mass graves, etc.
Now, the process in which you do your DNA typing analysis, is that accepted throughout the scientific community?
Yes.
And is it deemed reliable?
Yes.
And do you know if other agencies use this method?
Yes.
Now, are there controls in place to ensure reliability for your testing?
Yes.
Can you describe those?
We have positive and negative controls that are used throughout the process. Positive controls, a known DNA sample, so we know what the results are supposed to be, and that just ensures that the work or that the DNA analysis was performed correctly throughout. We also have negative controls that have all the same reagents that are used for everything else, except we don't add DNA to those, and those are to detect any contamination.
Detect any.
Contamination.
Now, is there also proficiency testing?
Yes.
And can you explain that?
So proficiency tests, it's a program where we get a set of DNA samples from an external laboratory where we don't know what the results are. We perform our analysis, we submit our results back to that agency. They compare them to the expected results and let us know kind of how we did. Hopefully they match. We do this twice a year.
Is there also some form of quality assurance?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
So the quality assurance program is a program that ensures we produce quality products. This covers everything from laboratory security and the laboratory building, all the way from how we hire people, the training of the people, the methods we use, all the way to how we report our analyses as well.
Now, could someone with the same knowledge, experience, and understanding of this process ensure that the testing is repeatable? Sorry, that was a bad question. Can someone with the same training and experience as you complete that same analysis and yield the same results?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a peer review process?
Yes.
Can you explain to the board what that is?
It's kind of two levels of review. Our laboratory as a whole, because we're accredited, we go through periodic audits from external agencies to make sure we comply with the standards for the accreditation. As a DNA unit specifically, we have to follow the National Quality Assurance Standards, and so we're audited by an external agency every 2 years. But then specifically for these analyses, every report that we put out goes through a technical review. This is a review that's conducted by another qualified DNA analyst, and they review our notes, our laboratory processes, all our worksheets, our results, our conclusions, and the report itself to make sure we didn't make any technical errors. And then after that's performed, we do an administrative review, which is by another individual. This individual makes sure that the report and the analyses were conducted following the laboratory's protocols and guidelines.
Now, I want to direct your attention to this case here. How did you come to work with this case?
Evidence and the transmittal was submitted to our laboratory.
And what were you requested to do?
Our laboratory was requested to perform DNA analysis on 3 9mm cartridge cases and a set of 2 swabs from a firearm, and then no DNA samples from 4 individuals.
Okay. Now, were you able to fulfill that request?
Yes.
Now, what items did you specifically analyze?
We looked at those, or we analyzed those 3 9mm cartridge cases, the 2 swabs, and then the 4 samples, known DNA samples from 4 individuals.
Now, I'm going to show you what's already been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 657. Do you recognize the labeling on this 657?
Yes.
And if you'll turn it over, what is this labeled as?
This is labeled as the known DNA sample from Jacob Hicks, the buccal swabs.
And is this the buccal swabs that were used in your analysis?
Yes.
Right. And moving to State's Exhibit 482 that's already been admitted into evidence, do you recognize the labeling on that?
Yes, sir.
And if you'll flip it over again, what is this exhibit?
These are labeled as the known DNA samples from Matthew Scott Lanz, Pickles.
Now, State's Exhibit 602, 603, 604, do you recognize the labeling on those?
Yes.
And what are these exhibits?
These are labeled as the 3 9mm fire cartridge cases.
And are these the cartridge casings that were swabbed for DNA?
Yes, sir.
Now, once you had all of this information, or all of these exhibits, did you conduct your analysis?
Yes.
And once you conducted your analysis of those exhibits, did you reduce your findings to a report?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 671. You recognize State's Exhibit 671?
Yes, sir.
How do you recognize it?
I have my initials on each page and then the final page is signed.
Is this your report for this case?
Yes, sir.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibit 671 into evidence.
Is there any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, we object to the document itself going out because it's a report, it's continuing testimony.
Well,
we can testify from it, certainly, but not to have it tendered go out to the court.
Let me hear your response.
So that objection doesn't go towards the admissibility of the report itself. Now, his objection would be at a different time.
I was going to say, you're talking about or seeing it or being admitted.
He just nods. He doesn't know.
It can be admitted as part of the case, but it can't go back to the court because it's continuing testimony.
Okay, but you're objecting. I was asking if there's an objection to its admittance. So
correct. It only has to go into the court.
Okay.
Be able to use that and read from it.
Okay, so I don't think we're there yet. So I'm
premature.
Overrule the objection as to I'll admit it or objection, and then when we get to evidence that the court will get to review, then we can address that. But I'm going to admit it over the objection.
Thank you, Judge. Any other Judge?
Yes.
All right. I'm now showing you the first page of State's Exhibit 671. What is this header up here?
That's just describing our laboratory.
And is that the ATF?
Yes.
All right. Now down here, below that to the right, is what information do we find here?
So that's the date the report was transmitted. It's our laboratory's case number, has the 2 submission numbers where evidence was submitted at 2 different times, has the reference number, which is our ATF agent's case number, because of course that's different. Then there's the title of the actual investigation, and then for this type of exam, it's my specific exam, forensic biology.
Now, under reference title, what is the reference title that you have here?
Title is Verbena Drive Homicide.
Now, what information did you have when you actually received these items?
There's usually a report of investigation that we get along with the evidence that describes where the evidence came from. Potentially a little bit of background so we know what we're actually performing DNA analysis on.
And from where it came from, is that Verbena Drive homicide?
Yes.
Okay. Now, down below, we have listed exhibits. What are these 3 here?
So lab exhibit numbers 1, 2, and 3, as well as agency exhibit numbers 1, 2, and 3, are the 3 9mm cartridge cases.
And are those the 3 that you've already identified in your testimony?
Yes.
Now, I did forget to show you State's Exhibit 461 that's already been admitted into evidence. Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes.
Now, is 461 what you have listed here as number 4?
Yes.
And is that the swabs of the ZEV 9 OZ9?
That's how they were identified to us, yes.
Okay. Now, as we continue down in that section, what were the other items that were submitted to you?
So exhibits 5, 6, 7, and 8 are the 4 known DNA samples from the relevant individuals.
Now, you have already, for number 5 and number 6, were those the items that you've already identified here in court?
Yes.
Now, if you will please, let me ask this. As we proceed through your report, do you have some sort of a grid system indicating the results?
Yes, in order to try to simplify how we report results, we report it in a table fashion.
Now, I'm going to show you page 2 of 671. Now, for the court, can you walk through this grid so we can understand your findings?
Yes. So the left column is the exhibit number. So we just talked about exhibits 5, 6, 7, and 8. Those are the 4 known DNA samples. Going across there, we have the sub-exhibit number. So whenever we take a cutting of something, we create a sub-exhibit from that. So 5.1, 6.1, 7.1, 8.1. 5.1, 6.1, 7.1, and 8.1 are all the sub-exhibits from exhibits 5 through 8. 5.1, this is the cutting of the known DNA sample from Matthew Scott Lanz. 6.1 was the known DNA sample from Jacob Hicks. 7.1 was the known DNA sample from Steven Sinatra. And then 8.1 was the known DNA sample from Timothy Hicks. So you go across, the next column lists results. So here we just kind of summarize the DNA profile we saw. These were known DNA samples, so they should be single source. So in this case, for all 4 of these, we obtained a single source male DNA profile. The next column just lists whether or not that profile is suitable for comparison. Again, these are known DNA samples, so yes, they were all 4 were suitable for comparison. Going down to exhibit number 1, 2, 3, that's the combined sample of the fired cartridge cases. That just fell under sub-exhibit 1.1. Those are the combined swabs from the 3 9mm cartridge cases. The result from that was a DNA profile consistent with 2 contributors. At least one of those contributors was male, and it was suitable for comparison. Going across, there's a whole section for conclusions, and you can see those 5 conclusions I listed before. In this case, found that there was support for inclusion for Jacob Hicks, exhibit 6.1, support for inclusion as a contributor, possible contributor to this profile from the 3 fire cartridge cases.
And I'm going to kind of stop you there, and then we'll just talk about that finding, and we'll move on to the next one. Okay. So going to the exhibit number 1, 2, 3 column here, we see combined swabs from 3 9mm cartridge casings. Were swabs taken of those 3 casings?
Yes, it's a kind of a rinse and swab method that we developed specifically for fire cartridge cases. And we're kind of weighing, if we do each one individually, we expect very little amounts of DNA from fire cartridge cases. So since these all had the same markings, same caliber, the individual collected the DNA from all 3 of these as one sample.
So swab all 3 of them, and that was used in your comparison to these known DNA samples of Matthew Lanz, Jacob Hicks, Steven Sinatra, and Timothy Hicks.
Correct.
All right. Now, did you follow your DNA analysis process while comparing the DNA profile from the 9mm cartridge cases to the known DNA profiles?
Yes.
Now, is that what we're finding as a result here in that second, or I guess the fourth box to the right?
So that result is determined whether or not the profile is suitable for comparison, and then the next columns are the actual results of the comparisons.
Now, for the results for the cartridge cases, were two types of profiles found?
It was determined to be a mixture of two individuals, yes.
All right. Now, as we move over, we see Jacob Hicks. What does it mean when Jacob Hicks is in this column?
So if you remember when we described the possible results we could get from our comparisons, one of those was support for inclusion. And so when we did this comparison to Mr. Hicks, to Jacob Hicks, then the likelihood ratio favored, gave a result that was much greater than 1, therefore it favored the probability of seeing this evidence given that Jacob Hicks was a contributor to the mixture.
Now, were you sent the DNA profile of Amber Hicks?
Yes. Or no, sorry, no, sir.
All right. Is it possible if it could be an Amber Hicks's DNA on these cartridge casings?
Yes, she could be the second individual, yes.
And over here on the far right, we haven't got to this column here. What's this column?
That's the result that favored exclusion. And in this case, these individuals were excluded as being possible contributors to the DNA profile.
So for the cartridge casings themselves was Matthew Lanz, Stephen Sinatra, and Timothy Justin Hicks excluded from these two profiles that were found, given the population frequency.
Yes, I mean, it's a single profile. It's a mixture of two individuals, but yes, they were excluded as being contributors to that mixture.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about touch DNA. What is touch DNA?
So touch DNA, trace DNA, this is just a general reference to something different than what we typically thought of DNA analysis in the past, where it was blood and body fluids. This is being able to get a DNA profile from something that you've touched or it's been touched. It's DNA that's left behind in the body oils or sweat in the finger, or it doesn't have to be a finger, but something that's come in contact with you.
Now, if a child were to pick up a casing and play with it, is it possible for that child's DNA to be on a casing?
Yes.
Now, in your experience on discharge casings or cartridges, how successful are you in actually extracting DNA off of spent casings?
On a per sample basis, about 30% of the time, we get a DNA profile that's suitable for comparison from a sample from fire cartridge cases.
After a casing is actually fired, is that when a majority of the DNA could be destroyed?
There's a lot of factors that affect how much DNA we recover and the quality of that DNA. There's just the deposition itself is affected by the substrate, how much pressure, how the pressure was applied, but also the substrate itself. One of the biggest factors we found was DNA interacts with copper that's in brass and degrades DNA, which can have almost as big of a degradation effect as the firing process. So there's many different factors that can affect the amount of DNA we recover from a fire cartridge case.
Now, not only physically holding it, if a casing is ejected out of a firearm and lands on a carpet within a house occupied by residents, is it possible for their DNA to end up on that cartridge casing?
Is it possible? Potentially. But again, there's a lot of factors. More DNA transfers with direct contact, more contacts that happen. The further away you get from the direct contact, the less DNA that can be transferred. Depends how much DNA and biological material is on the carpet to begin with. If it falls in a corner that's not stepped on very often, or there's not much contact with your skin, that would reduce the amount of DNA that would be transferred. If people don't walk in their bare feet on the carpet, then there might not be much biological material there to begin with to transfer. Things transfer if they're wet more often than if dried surfaces, so there's a lot of factors that would affect that.
Now, for your findings in this specific examination of the casings, were you able to, did you find a population frequency?
We performed our statistical calculation, yes.
Now, moving to page...
Our statistical calculation.
I'm moving to page 3 of State's Exhibit 671. Now, within this paragraph here, if you'll tell the court what your findings were as it relates to Jacob Hicks.
Do you mind if I read from the report?
If you'll read from the report.
So the statistical calculation number 1, which if you look at the table again, that's what was in that final column. We labeled each of the statistical calculations. First, we list what the conclusion was to begin with, and that was a DNA profile consistent with a mixture of 2 individuals was obtained from this sample, Exhibit 1.1, which again was the DNA collected from the 3 fired cartridge cases. We list our assumptions. So in this case, we're assuming that 2 individuals are assumed to have contributed to the DNA profile. And then we list the 2 different hypotheses. So again, when we're talking about the likelihood ratio, this is probability of seeing the evidence under one hypothesis, which in this case called the inclusionary hypothesis. The DNA originated from Jacob Hicks and an unrelated unknown individual, or the other hypothesis, in this case the exclusionary hypothesis. The DNA originated from 2 unrelated unknown individuals. Those are the assumptions and the hypotheses. And so then the actual likelihood ratio, the DNA profile is at least 1 trillion times more likely if it originated from Jacob Hicks and an unrelated unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unrelated unknown individuals. Kind of putting this in a different context, the probability of an unrelated individual in the population who has not contributed DNA to this sample yielding this level of support is less than 1 in 1 trillion. And then F, the F statement, just based on this calculation, there is evidentiary support for the inclusion of Jacob Hicks as a possible contributor to the DNA profile obtained from Exhibit 1.1. And that last statement, we had one locus, one of the genetic markers we look at, SC33, had an artifact in it, so we did not use that in the calculation.
Now, I want to talk about the population frequency. 1 trillion is a big number. Is that the specific number, or do you have parameters as to your frequencies?
The actual likelihood ratio is bigger than that, but we cap it at 1 trillion because once you get to quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, it becomes kind of meaningless. So we cap it at 1 trillion.
So it's more than the 1 trillion, but for your guidelines, you stop at 1 trillion.
Yes.
All right. Now I'm going to move back to page 2 of this exhibit. Now, if you'll walk through this line in the grid for the judge.
Sorry, I didn't see which one.
All right, the last line here.
So here, again, we're talking about Exhibit 4, and then the sub-item from that, which is the cuttings of the swabs. These were the set of swabs from the pistol.
I've got to go call a court. Hang on 1 second.
And again, we've obtained a DNA profile consistent with a mixture of 2 individuals. At least one of those was male. We determined that the profile was suitable for comparison purposes. And then, in this case, Matthew Scott Lanz, there was support for inclusion of Matthew Scott Lanz as being a contributor to this mixture.
Now, and over here on the excluded, who do we see here?
So Jacob Hicks, Stephen Sinatra, and Timothy Hicks were all excluded as possible contributors to this DNA profile.
Now, were you sent the DNA profile of a Scott Lanz?
Just Matthew Scott Lanz, not Scott Lanz, yes.
Now, if Matthew Scott Lanz's father touched this gun, would their DNA match?
Match. I don't understand that question. Would it match?
Let me.
You can just rephrase the question.
Yeah, I'll rephrase my question. Sorry, Judge. Let me give an example. If both Matthew Scott Lanz and Scott Lanz touched this gun, or a gun, would you see a difference between the DNA profile?
We can distinguish between father and son, yes.
And so in the swab that was taken of the pistol compared to these DNA profiles, was Matthew Scott Lanz included?
There was support for his inclusion as a contributor to the DNA profile from the swabs of the firearm.
Now, with your results, it reads that there is another contributor to that mixture. Is that right?
Yes.
If the father had touched this gun, is it possible that his DNA is on the gun too?
It is possible, yes.
And not being sent his DNA profile, are you unable to tell us whether or not the father's DNA is on the gun?
Correct. Without being able to make that comparison, we can't do that.
Now, going to the population frequency of Matthew Lanz's population frequency of inclusion, if you'll tell the court your finding.
So again, I don't know if you want me to repeat these, but they're kind of the same. The initial statement, then A, B, and C are all the same as above because these were both two-person mixtures. Inclusionary hypothesis, Matthew Scott Lanz, and inclusionary hypothesis was DNA originated from Matthew Scott Lanz and an unknown, unrelated individual. Exclusionary hypothesis is that the DNA originated from two unrelated, unknown individuals. The likelihood ratio, statement D, the DNA profile is at least 1 trillion times more likely if it originated from Matthew Scott Lanz and an unknown or unrelated, unknown individual than if it originated from two unrelated, unknown individuals. And again, putting this in a little bit different context, the probability of an unrelated individual in the population who has not contributed DNA to this sample yielding this level of support is less than 1 in 1 trillion. Based on this calculation, there's evidentiary support for the inclusion of Matthew Scott Lanz as a possible contributor to the DNA profile obtained from 4.1, which were the swabs of the firearm.
So now, just to go back to this, to page 1 of the exhibit. So those findings that you just gave to the court were that the swabs of the ZEV OZ9 pistol had 2 profiles on them, one of which was Matthew Scott Lanz.
There was support for inclusion. It was a positive contributor, yes.
Now, as you finalized your report, was it peer reviewed?
Yes, sir.
And was it approved through the peer review process?
Yes.
Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you. Barry, you can proceed with your cross.
Just got a couple of questions. You received the firearm, correct? In your lab?
I actually don't know. I just know from what we received, for DNA analysis, we received the fire cartridge cases and the 2 swabs of the firearm. I don't know if we received the firearm itself at the laboratory in Maryland.
Does your lab, I know it's an ATF lab, do they process firearms for trace evidence? Do you know?
Yes.
They do. Okay. And do you know whether this firearm was ever given to the lab for any trace evidence?
I believe it went for the exam at our Atlanta laboratory. And so if it went there, they would treat it like any other piece of evidence where we try to maximally exploit any potential evidence on that, which includes fingerprints, trace fibers, and DNA.
And I was a little confused about this question. Would it be possible for Amber Hicks's DNA to be on the shell casings You were not given her DNA sample, or were you?
We were not, therefore couldn't make that comparison.
So when the state asks you if it's possible, I guess anything's possible, but not be probable. If you didn't get it, there's no way to be able to know, right?
I can't say if it's probable or not probable. I wasn't given the sample to do the comparison.
All we know is that Jacob Hicks' DNA did show up on those shell casings.
There was support for inclusion of Jacob Hicks on those cartridge cases. I can't say definitively one way or the other.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Barry. Ayden Horowitz, is there any follow-up or redirect?
No, Judge.
And Mr. Bilby, excuse?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you very much. Why don't we take a quick break, and if I can have the attorneys approach just 1 minute.
Quick break and the attorney's approach. It's 4 o'clock. Not sure if it's a scheduling issue. Let me tell you what's going on right now. There's a case. There's a case that's going to be arraigned tomorrow in Tennessee. And it's a fellow YouTuber, a content creator, a big one, like 10 million subs type big one. And it's a state tax evasion charge. And the defendant is a man by the name of Cody, who I won't give his full name. His name is Cody. He goes by Whistling Diesel. He is a he's like a redneck with a ton of money and builds just crazy machines and destroys lots of valuable cars. That's pretty much the theme of his channel, just doing crazy stuff. If you know that Jack Wag, what was it called? Jack something. Jack Donkey. I can't remember the movie. There's something about Jack and something. If that movie were a YouTube channel, it would probably align with his quite closely. They're just crazy stunts. And so he does things like buys cars just so he can crush them because he doesn't like them. He, a while back, maybe a year or so ago, I have to remember the dates, he bought a used Ferrari, I believe it was, a 2020 Ferrari. It's still a $500,000 car, right? It's very expensive. He bought it, and of course he does what one does when you buy a $500,000 car. He took it out to do donuts in the cornfield. In the process, yes, Ferrari F8 Tributo purchased January 2023. Greeners, thank you. In the process, he the heat from the engine lit the corn stalks on fire. The corn stalks the car on fire. The car burned to the ground. He is being charged with tax evasion for, I guess, allegedly registering the car out of Montana, but the entire use of the car was in Tennessee. And so they're trying to get him for the tax money on the supercar. This is the only thing they've got on him as far as tax go that I'm aware of. He pays like he said, I just paid $1 million in taxes the other day. He pays a ton of taxes, makes a ton of money. There's more. Some of you, if you know your history, might know of a story about a man who was disgruntled about a situation he was in, and built himself a armored bulldozer, with which he used to rampage through his town and crush cars and businesses of people who had wronged him. Whistling Diesel has built that exact machine, same bulldozer, armor plated. He calls it the Killdozer, and he's posted, at least on TikTok, that he thinks instead of driving his other Ferrari to court on Wednesday, he will drive the Killdozer. So I'm thinking this is probably going to be in the news. Probably going to be in the news. I don't think even the slightest part of me believes that he would do anything moderately illegal with the Killdozer or even vandalism. But it might be worth keeping your ear to the ground, right? So it's in It's in Franklin. It's in Franklin, Tennessee. For those that are in Williamson County, his arraignment is tomorrow. I think it's scheduled for about 8:55, which means it's sort of like everyone's on the same 8:55 docket. And there may be a lot of supporters because that's typically what happens. Sometimes reasonable people are forced to do unreasonable things. Integrationing, thank you very much for that. OG, by the way, 31 months. Your name has changed. I don't recognize it. You'll have to tell me who it is. Anyway, it sounds like a bad idea. It sounds like, but his whole channel is like a list of bad ideas. EDB is around there. I'm not sure if she's going to cover this one particularly. It's as far as the case goes, it's pretty simple. This guy, as far as I know, is fairly clean record-wise. He's got some case against him for making too big waves with a jet ski, going too close to a boat and some things like that. He did accidentally nearly end his own existence when with a 50 caliber rifle he was shooting through steel plates when a ricochet grazed his head. He's apparently got a little scar from that, but interesting guy, does his own thing and makes it work. And he's quite the character. So I'm not sure if anyone wants to be a court watcher tomorrow or if you should avoid court tomorrow because of this. This message is for charity and is tax exempt. Thank you, Greeners. I'll send you the screenshot you can send to your accountant. I have a Killdozer sticker with that quote. Megan, just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Normally these cases take 6 months to 18 months to get through court, but with it just being a single charge, it may go sooner. It may settle. I mean, honestly, he may just pay the taxes and they'd be cool with that. It might just be about the money. He feels that the state is trying to make him the poster child for supercar tax fraud, or I'm quoting him loosely here or paraphrasing loosely. When people register their cars in a state that has a much lower or non-existent purchase price or registration price for a car like that, and so avoiding court seems safer. I just wanted to let you know, just to let you know. Anyway, apparently what he did with his car, everybody does with their cars. He says he had plans to use it in out of state in Montana, and it just burned down before. That was completely accidental. If you watch the episode, which I did, it does look like the fire caught them completely by surprise, although they were okay with definitely destroying the car. If he's willing to destroy millions of vehicles, I have a feeling the taxes aren't a huge deal. Right, for him, it's not the money. This is someone he got famous when someone stole his dad's skid steer, right? His old beat up skid steer, and just on the principle of something, the skid steer itself was worth $25,000-$30,000, which is a lot. Okay, it's a heavy piece of equipment, but he's like, well, I don't know what it was. He did $100,000 reward for any information that leads to him finding it. And then he goes around the country chasing it down. Okay. It's a principle thing for him. He stands by his principles. 50K, something like that. It was, you guys, those that follow him are correcting me on everything, but that's wonderful. I just wanted to let you know that this case is out there. I've got a call into the county regarding media pooling and if it's going to be live streamed and things like that. I'm waiting to hear back from them. But we might follow that one. I don't know. Maybe we can team up and do a collaboration. He could help us out. Then we could get him the video. Because as a media company, I can do it. He usually would not be allowed to get the video unless he hired a media company to do it. All right. I have a lawyer friend who practices criminal law and works and lives in Franklin. Bet she'll be avoiding. I don't think it's going to be a problem. If anything, he's done things like there was a kid who got in trouble for driving his tractor to school, okay, like his John Deere tractor. And so Whistling Diesel put out the call and said, hey, everybody, I'm announcing a new holiday. It's Drive Your Tractor to This School Day on Monday. And like dozens and dozens and dozens of tractors showed up that morning. He's got quite the reach to protest that this kid is not allowed to drive his tractor to school. So there's just some interesting stuff. Sherry Smith, member for 26 months. Welcome to the gallery. Actually, 29 months, and I love being here, Sherry. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate your support. Ian, I saw that he was almost there, but he hit 100,000. That is awesome. That was his goal. Kids, Cat Mom, thank you so much for announcing that. That is just awesome that happened. It's possible that Emily might try to cover it. That would be really cool if she did. I mean, if this full-on goes to trial, it's not that far away. I could do a little trip and probably go, and if there isn't somebody doing a live stream that we can partner with to get the live stream out of court, I might be willing to be the pool media for that. All right. We are on break. I think this is our last break of the day, right? Drive Your Tractor to School was amazing. It was, and it made the news. Pretty sure my high school is half snowmobiles and tractors in the winter. Sometimes that's the only way to get there. Drive Your Tractor to School Day. That's me paraphrasing. He just put out the call to say, hey, guys, let's show support for this kid who's being told he can't drive his personal tractor to school because they don't allow tractors at school. Sherry Smith gifted 5 memberships. Sherry, thank you. Congratulations to the recipients. Right. Most of the tractors were rather small John Deeres. We're not talking like a huge harvester or something. We're talking like a little John Deere. A little bit bigger than a lawnmower, but smaller than something that needs GPS guidance. Becca, if you cover it, you'll gain 1 to 3 more followers because my whole family will watch it. I honestly probably reach out to his team to see, first of all, if they object, because in Tennessee, the way it works is if I go and I say to the court and I ask the judge, I'd like to cover your docket today, she'll just post a note outside, just FYI, live cameras today. If you don't want to be on live camera, let me know and we'll continue your case. So they do have the ability to say, no, we don't want coverage. I don't think he's the type that would do that. But anyway, well, I'd probably reach out to him first and see if they would be amicable to coverage. And it would just be recording what's happening. It's not really taking a side or another. Paula Mack also gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Paula Mack. You guys are letting the gifts flow. And Mathis, can we get the RA voice treatment for Karen Reed reading one of these days? Let me tell you what Mathis is talking about is Karen Reed has fired back and filed a lawsuit naming all the people that she is suing and for what grounds. And there's a lot. This dropped just in the last 24 hours. So there's a lot happening in the world of true crime. So Whistling Diesel loves attention. He's got 10 million subs. Okay, he does things for attention. He does crazy things. I just don't know if he wants to sort of control the narrative on that part of the story, where there are some legal ramifications that could include, incarceration, things like that. It's a state issue, not federal, so we know that at least cameras are a possibility. Peter Tupperware just gifted a membership, and it went to Julie D. Julie D, congratulations. Gray kids are cooler. Broken Baker just read it now, and he has a sore throat. How many pages is it? Let's see. Do you think the parents added anything? Talking about this case particularly? Hang on.
Oh, sorry. I'll come back. This is not.
We're not on the record yet. I think the parents, they gave me the indication that they knew what was going on or suspected it before the police did. And that seems, I mean, like, it looked bad. I think we're coming back. Not yet. Peter, thanks again for your gifted membership. Yes, I see that Salty Spoon, although he has posted, his team posted the video of him getting arrested, being walked down to the perp walked down to the car, getting put in the car. They posted videos of him walking out of jail, like first day of freedom. You know, I'm finally out or whatever. So I don't think they're completely hiding under the radar. He's saying he does want to talk about it. He's just not going to disclose what the approach his lawyers are going to take yet. He doesn't want to surprise anybody. So we'll see what happens.
I was muted earlier, but
Okay.
Whistle Diesel have a $2 million bond. I doubt they'd have it. Is it $2 million? Let me look at his bond. $20,000. It's a surety bond. He's got a $20,000 bond. I think his attorneys have no attorney of record yet. He posted the $20,000. Charges are tax evasion, willful attempt, 1 and 2. So, and for those that are curious, let's see, case number 94CC1-2025-CR, that's for criminal, -19387. So you can follow along. Public record. Let's see. People are still walking in and out. We are not done for the day. I can tell you that the argument that the other people do it too typically does not work as a defense to crime. It's like when you get pulled over for speeding and just saying I was going with the flow of traffic. Now, in some cases, if you go too slowly when traffic's speeding, that can be a problem. But if it was like the guy in front of me was going faster, but you were speeding, right? So it's not. Yeah, 10.1. He's gained 100,000 since we last talked. Yeah, let's see. With the car in question being worth only, with the car in question being worth $50,000 or $500,000, the tax is obviously less than $500,000. I doubt they would put a bond up that is that big for a non-violent crime. Here we go.
Thank you. Everyone have a seat for me. Thank you. We are back on the record for the state of Georgia versus Matthew Scott Lanz. All parties are present. Okay, are we ready to proceed? Is there anything we need to put on the record?
We are. Judge, would like to put one thing on the record. We had an opportunity to talk about the objection that I might have as to the playing video from Shane Springs. The state has agreed to put in a couple of photographs and not do the video.
Okay.
Oh, good.
So we come to that conclusion, so I think we're ready to move on.
Okay.
That video would get us demonetized. I can tell you
Anything else
that.
we need to put on the record?
So good.
All right, y'all call your next witness.
At this time, the state calls Vanna Kelly.
I think the the tons and tons of money he's paid in taxes is
Do
also.
solemnly swear
in
or
his
affirm the testimony you're about to give the court on the issue now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Thank you. Please have a seat for me. And once seated, if you would please state and spell your true and correct legal name for the record.
My name is Vanna Kelly, VANNAKELLEY.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Ms. Kelly, how are you employed?
I am a firearm and tool mark examiner with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, which is commonly known as the ATF.
And how long have you been working there?
It will be 6 years in January.
For the court, can you go over your education, training, and experience that has led you to become a firearm and tool mark examiner for the ATF?
I have a Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice and a Master's in Public Administration. As I was finishing up my master's degree at the University of Georgia in 2011, I was hired by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, which is the GBI. And at that time, in 2011, I served for 1 year at the GBI as a NIBIN technician. NIBIN is NIBIN, and that acronym stands for the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. So essentially, as a NIBIN technician, I was imaging information from fired cartridge cases into a database, and that database will return potentially linked crime scenes to each other. After doing that for a year, I began training as a firearms examiner at the GBI. The GBI's in-house training program to be a firearms examiner was 1 year long, and during that time, I studied several different topics related to firearms examination, which included ammunition, learning about different types of firearms. I went on manufacturing tours to see how firearms are made, manufacturing tours to see how ammunition is made. I also trained other examiners while I was there, and I did, I believe, 5 armorers courses with different firearms manufacturers. So armorers courses are courses that are put on by the gun manufacturers, where basically we fully take apart a firearm, learn about how that firearm and all the parts function, reassemble the firearm, do safety checks to make sure that the firearm is functioning again, and learn about different troubleshooting techniques. Also at the GBI, I did serial number restorations, which is trying to recover a serial number that has been obliterated, that you can't read anymore. And also distance determinations, which were looking at gunpowder particles to try to determine how far the muzzle of the firearm was to the object that got shot. Additionally, since I've been at the ATF, I've went on more manufacturing tours. I'm also an instructor with the National Firearms Examiner Academy, where I teach other firearms examiners throughout the United States how to do different areas like I explained, and also still do serial number restorations. And I received additional training at the ATF in tool mark examination, which is that broader category of tools, including things like bolt cutters, knives, etc. like that, whereas firearms identification, firearms being a specific type of tool.
And so in total, you've been with the ATF for 6 years. And does that year-long program that you were with the ATF, does that count in that 6 years, or was that prior to that?
So the year-long training was my initial training with the GBI, and then I had, I think it was additional training months of the tool mark training, in addition to the training I already had from the GBI when I got to the ATF.
Now, have you ever testified as an expert in firearms identification analysis?
Yes.
About how many times?
92 prior to today.
Ever here in Cobb County?
Yes.
At this time, the state tenders Ms. Kelly as an expert in firearms identification and analysis.
No objection, Kelly. She's tendered and accepted as a firearms identification analysis.
Now, for the court, can you kind of explain what it means to be a firearm examiner?
Yes, so as a firearms examiner, my main responsibility is looking at fired ammunition components such as bullets and cartridge cases to determine if those bullets were fired from the same firearm, multiple firearms, the same thing with cartridge cases. Do the cartridge cases I have represent one firearm, multiple firearms, or if a firearm or multiple firearms are submitted for analysis, I can also create test fires with the firearm and then analyze those bullets and cartridge cases from the firearm to the bullets and cartridge cases from the scene.
Now, generally, can you explain how, I guess the gun works and it interacts with the cartridge case, or the cartridge, then it becomes a casing, and so on?
May I use a demonstrative aid?
Sure.
So
Oh, you've got it up there with you.
Yes.
Okay.
What I have is a large-scale plastic model of what I use the term cartridge. So a cartridge is going to refer to a single piece of unfired ammunition. So when all of the pieces are still together, that's called a cartridge. Now, once the cartridge is loaded into the firearm, the trigger is pulled, several things are going to happen. So one of the things that's going to happen is that a firing pin is going to strike in this gray area here and leave an indentation. So this is called the primer, and it's located here on the head of the cartridge case. Also, the cartridge case is where the gunpowder is housed. So inside this cup is where all of the gunpowder would be in the cartridge case, and once that primer is struck here, that's what ignites the gunpowder inside of the cartridge case. So when this is all together and that gunpowder has been ignited, what's happening is pressures are building up inside of this cartridge case, and when that pressure becomes too much, that's what pushes the bullet out of the cartridge case and forces it down the barrel of the firearm. So the bullet is then the projectile that's leaving into the firearm, and the cartridge case, in some instances, will be ejected from the firearm, or if we're talking about a revolver, it would remain in the firearm until manually ejected. And as this ammunition, both the cartridge case, including the primer portion, and the bullet are interacting with the firearm is imparting the information that I'm going to be looking at to make those comparisons and make those conclusions about whether this bullet was fired from the same firearm, or whether the cartridge case was fired from the same firearm as other cartridge cases or from a particular firearm.
Now, how do you go about actually doing that examination if you're sent a cartridge or spent cartridge to a firearm?
So if I receive a fired cartridge case and a firearm, the first part of my analysis is going to be looking at what are called class characteristics. So class characteristics are measurable features of the specimen that indicate a restricted or a more limited group source. So class characteristics are things that are predetermined by the manufacturer. They're design factors that happen, they're decisions that are made by the manufacturer before the manufacturing process begins. So, for instance, I like to use the analogy of class characteristics. You had to go out to the parking lot and you're looking for a blue Ford F-150. Well, the color blue is a class characteristic. It's an F-150, that's a class characteristic. You know you're looking for a truck. So we're able to quickly narrow down what we're looking for, because anything that's red, that's not our class characteristic. We don't need to consider that. Anything that's a car, a sedan, that's not a class characteristic we're interested in. So class characteristics take the larger group and help us narrow it down. So as far as when I'm looking at a fired cartridge case, some of those class characteristics can be, for instance, the caliber. If I have a 9mm cartridge case, well, is my firearm also 9mm, or is my firearm 45 caliber? Well, if they're both 9mm, then the class characteristics agree. I should investigate this further. But if, the class agreement is not there, then the 9mm cartridge case was fired from a 45 caliber, because the class don't agree. So some other things on a cartridge case that are class characteristics would include the type of marks that are left on the primer. Sometimes they can be like parallel lines, sometimes they're arching lines. So all of those would be things I would look at, and also the shape of the firing pin is a common class characteristic to look at as well. So some of the common shapes that we see for the firing pins can include an elliptical shape or also a circular shape. So sometimes the primer will have a rectangle, but we would know that anytime if the primer is a rectangle, then surely it wasn't fired from something that's indicating a circular, because those are two different class characteristics. So the class characteristics are my first level of analysis. Like I said, if the class are in agreement, then I will move on to the second level, which are called individual characteristics. Now, the individual characteristics are the marks that are caused by the irregularities and the imperfections on the tool surface. So those can occur incidental to manufacturing, or also after the gun has been produced. There might be damage to the gun, or corrosion, or just using the firearm can all influence those individual characteristics. So it's the individual characteristics that allow me to take that larger class group source and then look at those microscopic imperfections that are imparted onto the ammunition that allow me then say, yes, this was fired from the same firearm, or no, they were fired from different firearms.
Now, when you're just sent cartridge casings themselves, are you able to just take those and determine whether or not those casings came from one gun?
Yes, even when I do not have a firearm for comparison, I can still take multiple fired cartridge cases and compare them to each other on my comparison microscope, which my microscope allows me to have like a left stage and a right stage. So I basically put a piece of evidence on my left stage, a piece of evidence on my right stage, and when I look through my eyepiece, I'm seeing both of those items side by side under lighting and magnification. So yes, I can compare multiple fired cartridge cases to each other under my comparison microscope.
And basically determine that those casings came from one particular firearm.
If that is the scenario, yes, I can decide, yes, if those individual characteristics I'm seeing, if they're in agreement, then they were fired from the same firearm. But if I'm seeing either class or individual characteristics that are not in agreement, then I would have to conclude they were not fired from the same firearm.
Perfect. Now, are the methods and processes that you take at the ATF, are they reliable?
Yes, and these are the same. These are common in the field of firearms identification to use these processes that I'm talking about, and I use similar processes to do these comparisons both at the GBI and at the ATF.
Now, can someone with the same training and background conduct the same testing and come to the same result?
So all of my testing is actually physically looked at by a second examiner, and that second examiner with the training and experience has to look at the evidence themselves microscopically, and they also reach conclusions. And so before a report can even be issued, two examiners with the training and experience have looked at that and concluded the same things.
Now, is that just the peer review process?
So we actually have multiple levels. First step is once I finish with the physical comparison of the evidence, it goes through a process called verification. And that's where that second examiner will take the physical evidence and also look at it on their microscope. And then after they reach their conclusions, then I can put together all of my paperwork, and then it moves on to a technical review process. During the technical review process, another examiner is looking over all of the data that I recorded and all of my photographs and my report to make sure that everything I have assembled for the case file supports the conclusions that I am reporting. In addition to that, it also goes to another process of administrative review where a supervisor will look over the whole case file as well, more for administrative, but they can also call into question anything at that time as well.
Perfect. So I want to direct your attention to this case here. Did you perform a firearm examination in this case?
Yes, I did.
Now, what type of testing were you requested to do?
I received 3 9mm caliber cartridge cases and 1 9mm firearm, and I was asked to compare those cartridge cases to that firearm.
And were you able to do that in this case?
Yes.
Now, before we get further, I'm going to show you what's already been admitted into evidence. State's Exhibits 602, 602, 603, and 604. Do you recognize these exhibits?
Yes, I recognize these exhibits. Each of the packages has a label with the ATF case number that I created that has also the item number and my initials on it.
And are these the 9mm casings that were submitted to the ATF for testing?
Yes.
Now, now I'm going to show you 607. Do you recognize 607?
Yes, the package for Exhibit 607 also has the ATF case number label with the item number and my initials on it, as well as I recognize my initials on the trigger guard of the firearm. And additionally, there's a package in the gun box that are the test fires that I created with this firearm.
Now, is this the firearm that was submitted to the ATF for testing for comparison against these casings found in 602, 603, and 604?
Yes.
All right. Now, I may have already asked, were you able to conduct an analysis of these casings to this firearm?
Yes, I did.
And were your findings reduced to a report?
Yes.
I'm now going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 670. Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, Exhibit 670 is a copy of the report I issued in this case.
So is this just your report?
Yes, it is.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibit 670 into evidence.
670?
670, yes, Judge.
Is there any objection?
And Judge, we have the same objection as we did on the DNA. It's okay to tender it, but we don't want it to go back to the court.
So the court will admit it over objection. We will address any issues with what the court sees at the end of the case.
Thank you, Judge. May we publish?
Yes.
Now, starting with your report, what is this header up here?
That header is an indication that it was received first at the ATF's Washington lab in Beltsville, Maryland.
And then down here, what's found in this kind of top right corner of the document?
The date of the report is the date that I issued this report. The case number is a case number that is assigned when the evidence arrives at the ATF laboratory. The submission is, there apparently were multiple packages that were submitted, so this being the third. The reference number is the ATF investigative number, so that's another ATF number, but it's separate from our laboratory case number. The title is a title that comes in on the form when they submit it, and then the type of exam is indicating that they want firearms analysis done.
Now, as to a location of this evidence and where it came from, is that listed here as title?
I do not know if that would be consistent with that information.
Was that information just provided to you and then added into your report?
Yes, that is. When the evidence is submitted to the lab, there is a standard form that they fill out, and the title of the investigation is something that would be received on that paperwork into the laboratory.
All right. Now, down here under exhibits, what exhibits in particular were you sent for testing?
So all of these items, the first three lines being the individual 9mm cartridge cases, and the final fourth line being the ZEV Technologies Model OZ9 9mm pistol. All of those items listed there are the ones that I compared for this case.
And just for the record, can you read out the serial number of the firearm?
The serial number is ZA04909.
Now, for the court, can you describe the process that you took when you did your comparison of these cartridge casings to themselves, then to the firearm?
So yes, the first thing I did was take each of the 9mm fired cartridge cases and put those on my microscope and compared those three to each other. After I did that comparison, then I made 2 test fires with the firearm, And then I took the test fires, which also would then be fired bullets and cartridge cases, and I compared those test fires to the group of 3 other cartridge cases.
Now, when it comes to the firearm itself, how do you do that comparison to these cartridge casings?
So the first thing I do is make test fires using the firearm. So in this instance, I took the Zev 9mm pistol, and we have a large metal water tank. So as the name implies, it's a large tank. It's filled with water, and then on the front side of it is a port, and in that port is where I insert the firearm. And when I fire the firearm, the bullet goes down into the water, and the water serves to slow the bullet down. And then, as I'm test firing it, the cartridge case is ejected into a net that surrounds that port. So then I'm able to collect those samples because I have now shot this firearm myself. So I know that bullet I'm collecting and these cartridge cases I'm collecting, those are representative samples of the marks this particular firearm is making. So once I have, kind of the apples to apples comparison, now I have, the cartridge cases test fired, and I have the evidence from the scene. I can then compare the test fired cartridge cases to those 3 scene cartridge cases.
Now, in some, the 3 9mm cartridge casings that you were submitted, were they fired from the same firearm?
Yes, first I determined that those 3 9mm cartridge cases were all fired from the same firearm.
Now, after conducting those test fires from the Zev Technologies model OZ9 9mm pistol, did you compare those test fires to those 9mm casings?
Yes, I did.
Now, what were your results?
I also determined that those 3 cartridge cases were fired from that Zev Technologies model OZ9 9mm pistol.
And is that notated here under your results and examinations?
Yes, the first line stating a conclusion, which is actually the second line, says the exhibit 9 through 11, which are our ATF numbers. The exhibit 9 through 11 cartridge cases were identified as having been fired in the exhibit 12 firearm.
Now, after you came to your specific results, was your findings peer reviewed?
Well, first the term we use is verification. So yes, after I have recorded my conclusions and my analysis notes, I then pass that off to the second examiner, who then does the physical comparison of the evidence as well.
And after it went through that process, was your report approved?
Yes.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayden. Attorney Berry, you may proceed with the cross.
Thank you. Were you asked, Ms. Jelly, to do anything else with this firearm other than to test the cartridge cases?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you know if anybody at the crime lab looked for any trace evidence on the butt of this gun?
Part of my analysis does include recording whether there was any trace evidence that was visible to me. I'm not a trace examiner, but I would not know if a specific trace analyst looked at this firearm or not.
Okay. And you were not asked to make any determination about muzzle to target distance or anything of that nature?
No, sir.
You didn't have any of that information. The only other question that I have is when you fire this weapon, it ejects the cartridge, correct?
Yes.
In this particular type of weapon, how far would this bullet or this cartridge be ejected from the weapon?
I wouldn't be able to answer that. Like I said, when I create my test fires, there is a net that is stopping it from traveling any further. And the distance that it could travel. Obviously, it would vary between different types of firearms, and I would say possibly often it is the case that cartridge cases are not recovered from where exactly, because when I do shoot in a range, they're prone to roll, bounce, it could be several reasons why cartridge cases, once they're collected on a scene, are not in the area they would have been if they had only just been ejected from a firearm and then stopped there.
But normally if you find them in a cluster, then you can pretty much tell where the person may be standing at the time the weapon was fired.
That wouldn't be part of my analysis if other people wanted to draw conclusions about that.
Maybe somebody else that might look at that particular area.
It's possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Attorney Barry. Any comments? Any follow-up?
None from the state, Judge.
All right, Ms. Benson, excused?
Yes, Judge.
All right, so we'll excuse. Thank you.
Let's wait for the witness to step down. This time we're going to admit 3 pictures.
All right, state, you can call your next witness.
At this time, the state calls Sergeant Jeff Inman.
He was the one that tripping on the cords, sir. Keep going. Next one.
Thank you for raising your right hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the court on the issue now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Well, see, if you please state and spell your true and correct legal name for the record.
Spell the microphone too.
Yeah, you have a seat, and then you can, please state and then spell your true and correct legal name for the record.
My name is Sergeant Jeffrey Inman. It's Jeffery-Inman.
INMAN.
All right, Sergeant. How are you employed?
I am a sergeant with the Sandy Springs Police Department.
How long have you been with the Sandy Springs Police Department?
I'm one of the original officers. I started on July 1st, 2006.
So since 2006, have you been post certified?
I have been. I started with Fulton County in 1997.
So since 1997, you've been post certified?
I have.
Now, I want to direct your attention to November the 19th, 2021. Were you on duty that morning?
I was.
In what capacity?
I was one of the patrolling supervisors, sergeants that were on the road.
Now, did you respond to 90 Cameron Glen Drive?
I did.
And is that in Sandy Springs?
It is, yes, it is.
Now, why were you responding to that area?
We got a burglary in progress call that came out. So I started heading that way, and we got a second burglary in progress call that came out in the same location.
Now, around what time did you respond to that location?
It was around 9 o'clock in the morning.
When you arrived to that location, what did you observe?
When I arrived at the location, we had Officer Bips was getting a pepperball launcher out of his trunk of his car. The homeowner was out in the driveway, at the end of the driveway near the road. I walked into the house. We had about 8 officers that were in there. Sergeant Roush was standing at the bottom of the staircase, talking to somebody at the top of the staircase. Sergeant Petruska was in the process of getting some equipment. I believe it was a ballistic shield. And since I was the 3rd sergeant that arrived on the scene and they were busy, I took control of the situation.
Now, while you were you physically inside the house?
I was, yes.
And where in the house were you when Sergeant Roush was having a conversation with the person upstairs?
I initially walked around the main floor, checking to make sure that we had enough personnel that was in the house. I then walked over towards the front door to make sure that we had a perimeter set up on the house. Be making sure that nobody can get out of the house without our knowledge.
Now, at some point, did an individual come downstairs?
Yes, he did.
How were they dressed?
They were dressed in camouflage military style outfit.
Now, were officers equipped with body camera?
Yes, they were.
Now, I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 672. Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
This is off of Sergeant Roush's body cam.
In
Sorry, what was whose body cam?
Sergeant Roush.
Just spell it for me. If you can.
Raushe, I believe it is.
Thank you.
And is this a screenshot from the body camera of the man coming down the stairs?
It is, yes.
And is it a fair depiction of that recorded on the body camera?
Yes, it is.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibit 672 into evidence.
No objection.
State 672 is admitted.
Now, what we're seeing here in State's Exhibit 672, is this a picture of when the man is coming downstairs?
Yes, it is.
All right. So now, once he comes downstairs, then what happens?
At this point, I'm over towards the front door to the home. As the individual was coming downstairs, Sergeant Roush had made a rapport with him, so they were talking and was trying to convince him to come down the stairs. I heard a commotion behind me, and I turned around, and the individual that was coming down the stairs was basically coming off of the second or third step with his arm raised, coming down at Sergeant Roush, and basically looked like he was in the process of trying to hit Sergeant Roush.
Now, when you saw the defendant looking or attempting to hit Sergeant Roush, what happened after that?
Sergeant Roush raised his arms to block the attack. They started to struggle. They moved into the living room area, and they then went over the back of a couch. At this time, we're now converging in to help Sergeant Roush. And Sergeant Roush is also screaming at the same time. When they got down, after they went over the couch, they basically were kind of intertwined, and they started to roll. When they started to roll, I saw that it was a knife, a small katana knife looking. The individual was then stabbing Roush. I sit there and I yelled out, "Somebody shoot," as I'm drawing my weapon. I had a split second where I had a window. I fired one round, and Sergeant Petrucci fired one round, pretty much simultaneously. Sergeant Petrucci hit the subject in the chest. I hit the subject in the neck, and the subject then stopped what he was doing and dropped the knife. I then yelled for somebody to handcuff him as I'm reholstering my weapon. I then moved in with Officer Matt Williams and started handcuffing, and then the individual started fighting it. And we finally got him handcuffed. We separated Sergeant Roush from him, and Officer Mike Blythe then started treating Sergeant Roush for his wounds. We then carried the individual outside of the house to the front lawn to where we could then start treating his wounds.
Now, when separated, part of treating the defendant's wounds was kind of tearing off his clothes, part of that rendering of
it was, yes.
Okay. Now, I want to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 674. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 674?
I do.
How do you recognize it?
It's out on the front lawn of the house where Sergeant Manny is cutting off the individual's clothes.
And is this a fair and accurate screenshot from one of the body cameras of the incident that was taking place in that front yard?
It is, yes.
At this time, the state moves to enter what's marked as State's Exhibit 674.
Any objection? I'm sorry.
No, they're all.
State 674 is admitted.
These are all stipulated too.
Yes.
All right.
There's the defendant.
Now, do you remember how many layers the defendant was wearing?
He had on several layers of clothing. that needed to be cut off.
Do you remember there being any broken glass at the house?
I do not recall any broken glass in the house, no.
Now, after that incident, let me backtrack. Do you recognize the same individual in this courtroom today?
Can we move the monitor? The one on the desk. That appears to be him.
In describe article of clothing, too. Sorry,
I'm sorry, the gentleman in the yellowish green shirt.
The jail jumpsuit.
Now, before he was shot, the individual seen in State's Exhibit 674, were you able to see his face?
I was able to see his face when he was out on the lawn, yes.
Why couldn't you see his face when he was inside the house?
When it started out, my back was turned to him. When he came off the stairs and started attacking Sergeant Roush, he also had a hat on, which I believe maybe had a face covering on it. The situation was when he attacked Roush, they were together and down, so I did not see his face until he was actually taken outside.
In State's Exhibit 674, is this his face covering here?
Yes.
So in addition to the face covering and the military, was he wearing anything on his hands?
He was wearing gloves on his hands.
Okay. And then on top of the mask, was he wearing something on his head?
It was what in the military we call a beanie hat. So a full brim hat around that they use for best describing was for reconnaissance units that would wear that.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Attorney Barry, you may proceed.
Good afternoon, Sergeant.
How you doing, sir?
Good, thanks. Did you ever take a statement from Matthew while you were on the scene here?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay, did he say anything to you that is significant?
He uttered some statements while I was in the process of handcuffing, yes.
And what were those statements?
He called us several names. One of the names was, he called us the N-word. He called us pussies. Those are the two main ones that I do recall. I do recall him screaming and yelling at the same time.
Yeah. Did he indicate to you why he had gone to that house?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Did you see what automobile he arrived in?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. Nobody pointed out to you the vehicle where it might be sitting?
Not at that time, because what happened is when I got to the scene, I was in control of the scene. So I was not there to interview the subject. I was there to get the subject out of the house.
What was going on there?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any other involvement with Matthew after that?
I did not know.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ayden Horowitz, any additional questions for Sergeant Inman?
No, Judge.
All right, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Judge.
Right, you're excused, Sergeant Inman. Thank you.
That might do it for us tonight. It's almost 5 o'clock.
It's a natural ending point. It's right about 5 o'clock. Before we adjourn for the evening, is there anything that we need to put on the record? Any procedural concerns or issues?
Not that I know of at this point here.
No, you're not. All right, so we'll open the courtroom at about 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning for you all to be able to come in and get ready, and we'll start back at the end of the state ready for your next witness at 9 a.m.
Thank you.
All right, have a good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Please be safe. Thank you.
All right, that does it for today. Just like that, we're done. The tape will get me demonetized, unfortunately. You can go find it online, though. It's fairly easy to find. Look for Matthew Lanz, stab, police officer, shooting. There are a few words you can search for it. It's there. It's there. Georgia is Eastern time? It is. It is. A lot of work today. Thank you, Red Pen, and Samantha, and thoughts with Josh, who's not doing well right now. I believe in the hospital. Josh, please get better and quickly. Amber, thank you very much for your help today as well. Let's see. I think that's all we had today. Wanted to thank all the mods. Red Pen Samantha carried the big burden. Amber has to work. Sometimes she's busy, But thank you all. All right. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. We had a lot to cover today. I'm not going to read Karen Reed's filing tonight. I just don't have it in me. Samantha, yes, you're approved. I got the tardy note. I signed it, authorized to put it in your file. So, miss being able to chat. Amber, I know, but you're amazing. Keep doing what you're doing, which is taking care of you. That's important, and you've got people dependent on you. So, we'll keep an eye to the ground with the Tennessee case, the Whistle and Diesel. The hearings tomorrow. The court did not call me back before they closed, so. Where do you store demonstrate? What do you mean? Purple coconut, help me there. I think I missed a word. Is this a dad joke? Josh will recover faster if Grinner's a mod. I don't know. That might be the last. That might be the last thing he ever wants. Whistle and Diesel would have been a better channel name. He does have a better channel name. It's all right. I am what I am. What is tomorrow? Tomorrow is this trial, obviously. Jury selection continues in the Brian Walsh trial. Whistle and Diesel, Cody, is being arraigned in Franklin, Tennessee. May have a killdozer outside the courthouse. That will be on the news, I'm sure, if that happens. Your demonstrative thingy. Oh, what's this? I don't know. This was sent to me. Trying to remember who sent this. This was from David Sherman, National Rifle Association Life Member Certified Instructor. He's the manufacturer of this. I'm not sure if it was the same person who sent these, but that's where they were ordered from. So, and I do have a couple. I've got like primers, a big, huge primer that shows how they work. The cutaway models, 22 rimfire. This is just a standard, like a 9mm or something. I've got more like a 45 version that will show how, like in a revolver, how that would work with a longer. And somewhere over there, which I dropped, I have a rifle bullet as well. So, thank you. All right. I think that's all. I think that's it. Play the music, right? Where do you store it? Where do I store the demonstrative thing? I just put it on the desk right here. Right there. Like this. And one piece down on the floor over there. That was an accident. Yes, Brian Walsh. We covered Brian Walsh this morning. He pled guilty to 2 of the charges in the indictment. The murder charge still going forward, so the trial will happen as scheduled. It will just have fewer charges, which means it might not take the 4 to 6 weeks they were saying, but it's going to be good. All right, I don't know of anybody we need to portal to right now. So no portals in the works. Tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love, smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better, and please stay safe till we go live again tomorrow morning, 8:45 in the morning. Yes, Bree, exact replica. Many, many tons. Fully operational. Crazy. Crazy, crazy. Scotland's not sleeping tonight. Qualified for the World Cup. That is awesome. Congratulations, Scotland. Peace. Cass, thank you very much. All right, you guys be good to each other. Have a good night. Keep in mind all of our friends who are who are doing poorly. We've got a couple in the hospital. We've got a couple who are going through some hard things. Please keep them in mind. That would be great. You guys have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. You're my new best friend.
Because he's the guy.